Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Gomez Orta, President and CEO of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. I'm pleased to welcome you to the 2021 CHLI Future Leaders Conference with the theme, Harness Your Future Now. The Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute is the premier organization founded by members of Congress to advance the Hispanic community's economic progress with a focus on social responsibility and global competitiveness. Our vision is advancing the Hispanic community's diversity of thought. One of the main pillars of the organization is preparing future leaders. Among our many programs geared towards young adults, the Future Leaders Conference serves as a focal point for our mission. Thank you for joining us to hear from leaders in public service and the private sector as they share their experiences and provide advice for young professionals. And stay in touch and stay engaged and be part of the conversation by using the hashtag CHLI-FLC for CHLI Future Leaders Conference and the CHLI, THECHLI in Twitter. Thanks again to our sponsors who have been supporting this program and working with us to get this program going. And first, I'd like to be able to welcome to our virtual stage here one of our main and founding sponsors of the organization and of this conference. Joe Avila is with Ford Motor Company, a CHLI founding sponsor and the first company to sponsor this Global Leaders Internship Program and the Future Leaders Conference. One of our other sponsors is Janelle McClure with Best Buy, Janelle Perez with Doctors Healthcare Plans, and Ashley Nelson with McDonald's. And now I'd like to formally introduce Joe. He has a career that spans corporate social impact, international business, multicultural marketing, and supply chain. As a manager at the Ford Fund, he directs and oversees Ford Motor Company's strategic partnerships with key organizations and corporate initiatives nationally and internationally. He also leads Hispanic investments nationally, as well as the global expansion of signature programs throughout Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe, especially surrounding social mobility programs and entrepreneurial initiatives. Please join me in welcoming Joe.
Hello everyone, hola, good afternoon, buenas tardes a todos, and I guess good morning if you are calling in from the West Coast. But it's an honor for me to be on this virtual stage. As you know, I'm really proud to be part of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute Board of Directors. And I'm really proud of continuing the legacy of Ford Motor Company as a corporate founder of this great organization. On behalf of everyone at Ford, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this 2021 CHLI Future Leaders Conference. I want to congratulate CHLI's board and staff, especially our chairman, Lincoln Diaz-Balart, and Ann Gomez, our president and CEO, for your dedication to inspire and promote public service, leadership, and education among young people. I don't know if you know, but Ford Fund is the philanthropic arm of Ford Motor Company, and we have been supporting communities at a local level for more than 70 years. As the philanthropic arm of the company, we help build a better world where every person is free to move and pursue their dreams. We do this by working with Ford employees, dealers, and of course, community partners like CHLI. We actually are working really hard to provide access to essential needs and services so we can build equity, because as you know, as we do that, it opens doors, develop programs that remove barriers to economic success, to allow people to thrive, not just survive, using the power of mobility as a mobility company to create unique solutions to social economic challenges. Our roots run deep in the nonprofit community. At the Ford Fund, we believe that this freedom of movement should not be reserved for those who can afford it, but available for all to pursue their own path. So that's why we partner with organizations like CHLI. We know that CHLI has a passion for transforming lives and improving our community where we live, work, and do business. And we're very proud to be one of the founding partners of CHLI, as many of you know. Through this partnership, Ford has been able to facilitate numerous opportunities to empower young leaders, to contribute to better communities and economic mobility. We have had some great CHLI interns and they have taught me some examples of what the 3 Ps means. I always talk, especially to young people, about the 3 Ps that I believe in: passion, perseverance, and patience. Passion, you need to find the thing that you love, that you feel that you know, you don't feel that you're working, that you enjoy doing. Perseverance, everybody have to put hours, hard work, and everybody has to have some patience. We all have to work really hard, drive her passion, and have patience to be able to receive the award. So it's exciting to see so many talented students and young professionals here. I know some of you were passed for alumni and for fellows. Many of us were in your shoes not too long ago. Please keep pursuing your dreams. The difference nowadays is that you have the opportunities like this Future Leader Conference where you can explore the possibilities the world has to offer. So always remember, no dream is too big or too small. Keep chasing yours. So muchas gracias and enjoy the rest of the program. Back to you, Marianne.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Greatly appreciate it again for you joining with us. As you always have, if it's not you, if it's always somebody else in the organization. So greatly appreciate it. Before you head off, I'm going to ask, since I noticed we've got a couple of board members here, I'm going to ask Sarah Decker and Omar, if you can please unmute your video. I'd love to be able to take a screenshot with our board members here. Oh, there's Keith too. Stay on the camera there, dear. And so we don't have an empty little square. Orlando, go ahead and turn your video back on, dear. All right. This is we have a full Hollywood squares. So Brianna, our photographer and video fellow, she will take a couple of pictures. So look in the camera and on the count of 3, smile and she will take the pictures. Mauricio, that means you too, dear. So, all right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Brianna, do I have a yes, thumbs up that worked? Let's see, we've got our little technology here going, and let's see. She hasn't said yes yet. She probably has it. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Joe. We look forward to seeing you. Si Dios quiere, this time next year, we will all be in person and we'll be able to have not just a virtual hug, but a personal hug. And thank you for all that you're doing for not only Chile, but other communities that we know you're involved in with as well. So thank you, Joe. All right, and now I'm going to pass it on to messages from a couple of our members of Congress who have, one in particular is a member of the Congressional Board here of our Board of Directors. So I'm going to pass this on for our technical support here. 2 of the congressional members of the 3 who are presenting today were not able to be here in person, but they did record a message for you. So first up is going to be Congressman David Valadao from California. And then second will be Congressman Tony Gonzales of Texas. So I'm going to pass this on to Mauricio to please show us the videos. And then after them, we will have a live remark from Congressmember Spartz from Indiana. So thanks again and pass it on for our video messages from members of Congress.
Good afternoon. My name is David Valadao, and I represent California's 21st District in the United States House of Representatives. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute for hosting this conference. As a congressional board member, I have seen the incredible work this organization has accomplished for the Hispanic community and the leadership this program has inspired. Thank you for welcoming me to speak to the next generation of Hispanic leaders. As a son of immigrants and as the representative of a congressional district that is over 70% Hispanic, I understand the unique and difficult issues facing this community. I also understand the strong character and will instilled in those who overcome these challenges. Working alongside my father on our family's dairy farm growing up, I witnessed firsthand the dedication and hard work it took to succeed as an immigrant. His diligence greatly influenced my own work ethic that has shaped my life as a public servant. As an elected official, I strive to represent my constituents and all their interests on a federal level. This includes recognizing and advocating for the Hispanic community, which has contributed so much to California's 21st District and the United States. I believe that great leadership requires a commitment to serve those you represent with an understanding of their culture, values, and priorities. As students looking forward to a life in leadership, you have an important opportunity to expand Hispanic representation and preserve and celebrate your community's traditions. We are all looking to the future today, and I look to you as the next generation of leaders. I'm confident that your hard work, perseverance, and persistence will help you to succeed as you venture out into life of leading others. Once again, thank you for having me. I wish you all a great success in the next chapter of your life.
Hello, this is Congressman Tony Gonzales, and I represent the 23rd Congressional District of Texas. Thank you for having me at the CHLI Future Leaders Conference. With my district being over 70% Hispanic, I am proud to support organizations like CHLI that help give an important platform for Hispanic leaders. Being a congressman means being a public servant. However, my interest in public service started long before I ran for Congress. At the age of 18, I left high school to join the Navy and provide a path for success for myself and my family. I served 20 years in the United States Navy as a cryptologist, rising to the rank of Master Chief. With multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as in Asia, in this role, I got to see firsthand the security challenges that face our country and the international community at large. Additionally, prior to becoming a member of Congress, I worked as an active member in my community to help create educational and economic opportunities in impoverished areas. I created the Tony Gonzales Foundation, a nonprofit focused on utilizing local businesses, schools, and families to promote economic development and upward mobility. All these previous roles prepared me for my role in Congress today and representing District 23 in Texas. As a congressman, my job is to represent each and every constituent in my district. Without them, I would not be in this incredible position. Whether it's facilitating grants, introducing legislation, or providing helpful resources, I work to solve the problems and address the needs of my community. Again, thank you for having me, and if I ever may be assistance to you, please do not hesitate to reach out. I wish all the best in your future endeavors. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you again to the two congressional members. Again, David Valadao from California, who serves on our board of directors, and a special thank you to Congressman Tony Gonzales as well for his service to our country. I am going to ask that I introduce first our moderator for our first panel, since our Keith Fernandez is already here. Congresswoman Spartz needs a couple more minutes before she can join us. As you know, this is live during the time that the members are in committee meetings and votes. And so we work around their schedule. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Keith. And then Keith, if there's anything else you'd like to add, dear, we'll come back to the Congress member when she gets here, and then you can go back to the panel. So I want to make sure that we formally introduce all the CHLI Familia members, because we all know and love you by first name, but not everybody knows Keith like I know Keith. So first off, Keith is currently the president of the CHLI Alumni Association for a 2-year term voted by his peers. He was a 2006 CHLI Ford Motor Company congressional intern. He is now the senior manager for social impact communications at DoorDash, and he was previously with Univision Communications and the Honorable Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. Keith, anything else you'd like to add, dear?
Thanks, Mary Ann, absolutely. And I just want to take a moment to thank all the donors and attendees for supporting CHLI. Our CHLI Alumni Association is exactly the reason why CHLI is so successful when it comes to ensuring that young people have the opportunity as they move on from CHLI and, ladder into corporations, ladder into elected officials, and ensure that they have the opportunity to network with their peers. So I'd like to thank all the corporate foundation members, the corporate board members, members, and all the young men and women who are here today, who are going to learn a lot from folks who are speaking as panelists, in addition to Marianne, the CHLI staff, and Chairman Lincoln Diaz-Balart, and the CHLI Madrina, Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Layton, and my former boss. So thank you, Marianne. And if Congresswoman Spartz is ready, we can transition to her, or if not, I can start doing rapid fire questions.
Okay. Let me see here. I think she needed another minute or so. So let me check.
Yes, we might need another minute or so.
I think so. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw out a couple of questions at you, Keith, since you're here, dear. And we've got some people in the audience, I'm sure, that are interested in a little bit more about your background. Since you're going to be the moderator for the next session, you're going to be asking them a bunch of questions. So a couple of things for you is, first of all, what was the CHLI internship like for you? And is it an important opportunity for others to consider internships?
Yeah, the CHLI internship is absolutely an important opportunity. Of course, I refer to the current CHLI internship as CHLI Premium. I think I was a second or third CHLI class. There was no George Washington University integration. There were no corporate opportunities. This iteration of the CHLI internship is a life-changing opportunity for so many who oftentimes don't have the ability to intern in a congressional office, in a corporate boardroom or a corporate office, and can't frankly pay their way to DC. I wouldn't have been able to pay my way to DC without CHLI and without the generous support of those who make it happen and the members who generously host interns in the office. So if you're a young person, which is getting farther and farther away from me every day, considering whether to apply to CHLI, I say do it.
All right. And in your background, you started, I don't think I mentioned this actually, but tell us a little bit about the college degrees that you have and why you chose those.
Absolutely. Yeah, I started at Florida International University and got a bachelor's in political science, go Golden Panthers. And then I went to the University of Florida Law School, so go Gators. And those two degrees really helped me write, think, and have the ability to relate to problems in a way that is respectful of dissenting points of view, but also allows you to make allows any person to make their argument in a cogent manner based on evidence and based on really conclusions that stand up to logic and reason. I think it's not just helpful for anyone who wants to be an attorney or work in politics, but it's really helpful throughout life and business. I found it's been helpful at DoorDash, at Univision. It was helpful in politics too, but it's been a really good way to familiarize myself, not just with the law, but the way to make an argument in a way that's professional, cogent, and logical.
Well, of course, what a wonderful, smooth response from somebody with a law degree. I love it. And very well spoken, dear. I just got a message that the Congresswoman is literally walking back to her office to be able to engage with us live. So I do want to check in with you too, Keith. Now, since you are the new president of the Alumni Association, serving for a 2-year term, use this opportunity, please, dear, for another couple of minutes here to share with everyone who is on your board and what is your goal and desired outcomes for this first year of your term?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be leading the CHLI Alumni Association, but I can't make it happen without this great board that's joining me, who were also elected independently. So it's not like I was elected and then, they came on board. They were also elected because they're strong leaders, each and every one of them in their own right. Michael Monroy, who's the VP, Sara Garcia, who you'll see later on, is our treasurer. Eliza Ramirez is our secretary. Linoshka Luna is our Director of Communications, our Vice President of Communications, and Lizzie Dos Santos is our Vice President of Professional Development, and Cesar is our Director of Outreach. So it's really a great board, and what I'm really impressed about is that we have a CHLI cohort age range That ranges from the relative dinosaurs, that's me, to folks who are much younger and graduated much recently from the CHLI alumni, so the CHLI program. So the Alumni Association has a diversity of perspectives. One of the really big accomplishments that I think we're tracking towards is making sure we're fundraising, making sure we're hosting events. So we just recently had an in-person happy hour in DC in July that was well attended, and I'm so glad that folks were able to go and promote that. And we'll be having a few programmatic updates pretty soon. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but I'm excited about the ability to build sustainable programs for the Alumni Association so that the CHLI legacy is one of giving back, not just when you're a CHLI intern or a CHLI fellow, but over time, so CHLI can continue to be a professional and personal support long after, like me, you left the CHLI umbrella as an intern, but never the CHLI family.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to you, Keith. And when the Congresswoman comes in, just like if we were in live, we would take a pause and give her the opportunity to address everyone, since she's really looking forward to it. So we want to make sure that we're respectful of her time as well, and that we're also respectful of your time and everyone else who has joined for the first panel. So the floor is yours, dear Keith.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary Ann, and thank you so much. We have an excellent lineup of panelists today. We have Charis Gutter, Head of North American Government and Industry Affairs at Corteva Agriscience. For the past 6 years, Charis has led Corteva's formerly DuPont's Agricultural Trade Policy Advisory Committee. He also spent several years on Capitol Hill as Deputy Chief of Staff and Legislative Director to Congressman Benny G. Thompson, and as a professional staff member to the House Committee on Homeland Security. He was a corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps. We're also joined by Sara Garcia, the Community Affairs Director at Molson Coors Beverage Company. Kayla leads a community partnership and investment strategy for Colorado and manages national community programs for diverse initiatives. Prior to her role at Molson Coors, Kayla served 10 years in the nonprofit sector, where she led fundraising and social impact programs for leading nonprofits and contributed to raising nearly $28 million annually. Additionally, we have Rolando Machado, the Executive Assistant at Commander Navy Recruiting Command. As a career surface warfare officer in the U.S. Navy, he served on 6 ships, most recently as the engineering officer on board the USS Vicksburg. He also served as officer in charge and officer recruiter for the Navy in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we're joined by a CHLI board member, Sarah Decker, the Director of Federal Government Affairs at Walmart. She handles energy, transportation, and commerce issues. Previously, Decker served as Legislative Director for Senator Marco Rubio. Prior to joining Rubio's office, she served as a legislative assistant to retired Congressman John Shadegg, focused on energy, environment, agricultural, and transportation policy, and as legislative aide to the late Senator Pete Domenici on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Please join me in welcoming our wonderful panelists. So thank you very much, and I'm going to start with a few general questions for our panel, and I think that the order probably should go Charis, Kayla, Sarah, and Rolando, just so folks know how to answer. So I think one of the questions that a lot of folks have when we talk about careers is, what's the most unexpected yet fortunate turn your career has taken, and what can students who are likely planning out their careers learn from embracing change? And for some context, the question really is about, what were you thinking when you were a student that would happen in your career that did not end up happening, but this totally unexpected thing happened that was positive and changed the trajectory for your career for the better? So I think we'll start with Charis, and please, if I'm mispronouncing the name, let me know.
Hey, good afternoon, Charis Gutter, North America Government and Industry Affairs for Corteva Agriscience. I've now been in Washington, D.C., working in ag policy circles for the past 20 years, but it wasn't by design. You know, I happened into this career like many of us, really didn't plan for a career on Capitol Hill or in this space, but it's a bit of luck, right? And what is luck? It's when preparation meets opportunity. I happened to work local government back in Mississippi, and I ran into my hometown member of Congress. He needed help in his Washington, D.C. office, and that's kind of what got me on his radar, including a number of local campaign and opportunities back home in Mississippi. So being persistent, being a bit of a nuisance, but also being prepared. I think that really is what helped get that first piece of the start. The second piece of advice and feedback that I would give is around building the network. Back home, all of my family, church members, they knew my congressman, and they helped build that echo chamber for me. Back before Facebook was a thing, right? Those were my social circles who surrounded Benny Thompson and said, hey, you should really take this kid. We invest in him. And for me, the rest was history. My local church took up a donation, enough money to get me to DC. And I really didn't have enough money to get back home. So that's why I'm still here.
That's great. And Kayla, I think you're up next.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kayla Garcia, Community Affairs Director at Molson Coors Beverage Company. I do have to state before I start that you will see me drinking some water. I'm not consuming one of our products right now. So I'm just saying that if you see what appears to be a can, I'm not celebrating too early. But I would say that I actually, in college, I was a communications and political science major. And I felt like one route was very clear where I needed to go with political science and what I should be doing. Communications is another area which we'll tackle later. And neither one of them really kind of spoke to me at the moment of what I needed to be doing. And so I went into the nonprofit sector, which I felt was no one really goes to school for that, especially a nonprofit fundraiser. But I went ahead and followed my purpose and passion for serving the community in a different way, not necessarily in a public service space, but through the community service space. Definitely didn't have any friends go that route. A lot of my friends at the time were taking these big corporate jobs. I mean, you had just worked for 4 years of college to get to that. And I think I started at a very different scale. But ultimately, I knew that I'm a purpose and passion driven person. I needed to kind of be in a career where I was fulfilled that way, which ultimately now has led me to this career, which I am now in the corporate space, still doing what I love to do and helping to create these social impact programs, to create our community programs for a large, amazing beverage company. But I do owe that all to being able to start kind of where I wanted to by following that gut instinct of going and serving the community. And since now I get to do it, but in a different capacity, which I'm happy to share more later, but it's very exciting.
That's great to hear. And so few people start off with their passion at the beginning. So it's incredible for students to hear about that. Sara, how about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on such a distinguished panel. So appreciate the opportunity to join the discussion today. I will say for me, probably something that surprised me throughout my career is I got both of my degrees in public policy, both a bachelor's and a master's at Georgia Tech. And during my education, I learned about what a lobbyist does. And I got really excited about the profession itself and thought it was something that really appealed to me. And so I came up to Washington, D.C. and met with a bunch of lobbyists to ask them about how they got to where they were. And every single one of them pointed me to Capitol Hill to sort of get my baseline education on Hill process, politics, and policy. So I did that, and I thought it was just sort of a stepping stone into my career as a lobbyist, which it ultimately was. However, what I did not anticipate was how long I stayed in the public service. I think I ended up at the end of the day with a little bit over 11 years on Capitol Hill, when I think probably initially I thought it'd be closer to 4 or 5. And a lot of that sort of parlays into what Kayla was saying is I really found a lot of fulfillment out of my public service and got to do a lot of really amazing things that I don't think I otherwise would have been able to do. And so at the end of the day, it worked out for the best. And while I'm happy to be where I am now, that's just an experience of a lifetime. So it was a surprise tenure for me.
That's great to hear. And leadership through public service and advocacy in the corporate sector is definitely a common mix here in DC, but perhaps not so much where everyone else is from. Certainly wasn't in Miami. Rolando, we'll close out this set of questions with you.
Yeah, I love hearing Kayla talk because some of the stuff that I experienced was very similar, right? I had a huge desire to serve. And so for me, it ended up being one of those things where if I didn't figure out some way to go in service, I was going to be lost as an individual. I had a lot of passion. I didn't really know where to put it and what direction. And the direction that I wanted to put it was the military. And none of my classmates were interested in that, right? And so for me, it was a very different experience. But fortunately, that seemed to be the right route. And you talked about unfortunate experiences that might send you on a different career path. I went to the Naval Academy having grown up wanting to be an astronaut, right? And the Naval Academy was the school that had the largest number of astronaut graduates, right? And so by no fault of my own, I was too tall to be in a jet plane, right? And so, 6'4" Cuban walking around Miami probably doesn't really matter, but when you're trying to get to learn how to be an aviator in the Navy, it doesn't work out. So I ended up going a different route. And within the Navy, my role was surface warfare officer. I was super disappointed about this. But one of my mentors sat me down, and he was another surface warfare officer. And he said to me, the difference between all those other communities and being a surface warfare officer, a SWO, is that the moment you stand on board a ship, the moment you get on that ship, you are in charge of 10 to 15 people. And that's it. You're 22 years old. You just graduated college. And for me, they made me the electrical officer on my first ship, which means I was in charge of all the electrical systems on the ship. Anything that had to do with power and providing power on the ship, I was responsible for. And I had a team of 10 electricians that were doing all that maintenance on board. So that's a lot of responsibility very, very early. I wasn't expecting it, but I think that was, for me, the best way for me to grow as a manager and a leader.
That's great, and those are incredible stories. I see Marianne back, so I don't know if the Congresswoman is ready, or if not, I can start with the lightning round.
Thank you all very much for that first round and for sharing a little bit of that. I see the Congresswoman has been able to join us now, and just gonna ask. I'm gonna say a little line here. So Congresswoman Victoria Spartz is from Indiana's 5th District. She's here live. She rushed from one committee meeting to get to the office. We know how busy you are, and I'm sure that she has another meeting coming up before everyone heads out for August recess. So without further ado, please, Congresswoman, the floor is yours.
Well, hello, thank you so much. It's been a little bit crazy week, but I look forward to getting back to Indiana, hopefully tonight. That's my plan. We have very busy 6 weeks. We're going to be back home, and it's important. It's important to connect with the people and really have directly to talk to them what's happening in the country. And it's important to get involved. So I'm glad to see, and I would like to encourage more people to get involved and pay attention to what's happening in politics. A lot of times we're guilty of, not paying attention until it hits us on the head. And a lot of time it's too late. And be good informed, because there are a lot of things in the media and everywhere else, not necessarily they're the truth, but just political reasons and a lot of propaganda. As you can tell, I have my Yankee accent. Actually in Tennessee, they called me a Yankee. So I said I really love that, because it made me feel so American, but I'm originally from Ukraine, and I came here after college. And so I came here when I was 21. And I'm terrible at, someone who experienced not having freedoms. I probably have much higher value on freedoms than a lot of people who are born in our country. So it made me crazy enough to become a politician, because I always feel like if I don't like something, have to do something about it. And that's what the greatest of our country. You actually, as an individual, you can have a lot of impact if you are willing to stand up, if you're willing to challenge what's happening in this, and people will support you. So I represent the great state, and and it's my honor to be part of this legislative branch, which is pretty broken right now. With lots of drama, a lot of problems. And I'll tell you, I was always joking, if you like to do a lot of walking and have there is no political science, but if you have a major in drama or theater, you will love legislative branch. You will love Congress, because a lot of drama in theater, nonstop. So we can do some work a little bit, but that is what's greatest of our country. We have a government that's supposed to protect your rights, and everyone can pursue whatever happiness they want, and no one tells you what you should be. And I think that is probably the most important thing. And it's important to engage, and for Hispanic community to be engaged and very informed and be active members of society and political processes and community. And that is the beauty of our country, because we have people coming from so many different countries around the world with so many different religions and views. But it's good to have that vibrancy and diversity of opinion. Makes us stronger. If we are united by the common goal to have good small government and have power and equal rights for the people. And I think if we are united by that goal of and beauty of freedoms, we'll continue being the greatest republics that ever existed. But thank you for having me. And I don't know if you have questions, or I am done. You tell me. I have a few minutes.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I'm going to ask you a question, dear, since you said it's okay, and I'm sure the panel will be okay with it. What we're here is being able to, obviously, as you just so eloquently put, in terms of inspiring future leaders and current leaders. One of the things that we do, and we've talked about in the past, is to have internships and how you start. And so I'm curious from your perspective, what you share with young leaders in particular about internships or majors, anything like that for the young leaders and young professionals listening.
Actually, I have some Fernandez. He speaks Spanish. We might go to Miami with him next week, because I'm in Cuba advisory group and don't speak Spanish, because I actually have someone who works with me, very bright young man. But honestly, I always tell young people, you don't know in life until you try something, if you like it or not. So any opportunities you have to get involved, like I have a lot of interns in the district in most of my offices. I try to, we have interns here. I try to engage young people and try different things. And a lot of times you get surprised, what you learn. And also, you might decide totally that you're going to change what you want to do in life. I have several degrees and several majors. Never in my life I thought I'm going to be in politics. And I actually never wanted to do finance and accounting. But when I came to the United States, no one cared about my fancy MBA from Ukraine. So I was like, what should I go? What job should I get? I was like, well, I should do something with economics. So I went to the local bank and I said, I'll take job, whatever you have. They said, what about floating teller? I'm like, I have no idea what it means, floating teller. I said, I'll take it. So I'm like, but it's actually, at the end was a great job, because since I was floating around the county, I got to know a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and really got to know a lot of community and got integrated quickly in the community. And people used to come to branches, spend hours, and I mean, you could have 100 people a day in a branch. So it was actually a very good experience, very tough. When a larger bank bought us, a lot of people come and scream at you. I'm like, ooh, but it toughened me up for getting ready for politics, because you do have a lot of people screaming at you too. So any job you have in life, it actually makes you stronger, makes you better. So you should try different things, not to be afraid, try new things, not too afraid to challenge the status quo, and sometimes go outside your comfort zone. And it's all about determination. If you're determined and you really love something, you will have a significant chance to succeed if you never give up. So determination, it's really the key for any success in life.
Wow, thank you so much. That was very much what the main question and the first question was for all the other panelists. And so I'm going to ask before you step away from the camera, ma'am, if we can have a virtual photo with all our other speakers as well. So they already know the drill. I'm going to count to 3, and you're gonna smile in the camera. And Brianna, our video and photography intern, is going to snap a photo that we will also use to thank everyone, and we will also promote on Twitter. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much, Congresswoman. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for that support and for your continued support of all students in your district and beyond. Really appreciate it. Thank you. She went right into the same old, response all of you guys did. This is so awesome. I love it. And with a different accent. So the floor is back to you, Keith.
Well, thank you so much. And actually, her remarks are an unknown segue into the next question for the panel, which is, during the pandemic, we've had a lot of change, whether it's work from home, whether it's people taking on new roles, new responsibilities, or just reimagining current roles in a way that now is adapting to an environment that we just had not considered pre-pandemic. So this is a two-part question, and y'all can answer one or both parts. But first of all, how do you think the way we work has changed since you entered the workforce? For example, with me, it's probably less in-person contact, more digital contact, emails, even Slack, which was not something that was on my radar even 5 years ago. So that's one. And the second one is, given the amount of young men and women here looking to have successful careers, what do you look for in an employee who you believe will be successful in an organization, whether that's a working trait, whether that's education, preparedness, really sort of all of the above that could be helpful to someone looking to chart out their first job or their first job as a stepping stone to an effective career. So I'll turn it over to Karis first, and we'll keep the same order.
Wow, I wish I could go later so that I can hear the fantastic answers from Kayla and Sara, but I'll get us started here. About 20 years ago, when I first made it to Washington, D.C., one of the first devices that I inherited was a BlackBerry. And it wasn't the digital ones that we kind of see and know of today. It was the ones by Research in Motion. And it really was just a texting device. What a difference a few years makes. Apple's burst onto the scene, and we've got all sorts of technology now. So one of the biggest changes is a transition to using more technology, but not just using it, leveraging it in a way where ultimately your day-to-day lives are more efficient, making sure that technology helps to benefit what we do at work every day. We've now seen a whole range of professionals, cadre of professionals come in who can get things done in 15 minutes that used to take all day to get done. And so the new challenge in the workforce that we've seen has been, how can employers make better use of the employees' time as opposed to the employees making better use of their time? So it's a culture shift within the company. I think we've all lived in our basements. I'm in my basement right now for the past year and a half. Right now, I'm doing meetings about every 30 to 45 minutes as opposed to 3 meetings a day. So all of a sudden, Corteva's gotten 15 meetings a day out of me, whereas opposed to being in Washington, going into the office, I clock in about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I make my rounds around the water cooler. You ask a few questions about how everybody's evening was, and it's 10 o'clock and you're just now logging in. You do your one meeting at about 11:30, you're watching the clock and you're headed off to lunch because it's going to take you 15 to 20 minutes to get there. Come back from lunch, you're logging back in about 1 o'clock. So already we've seen more efficiency in a remote setting than we have historically seen. But I would also say that I don't know that that pace is sustainable. So I would kind of table that answer there, because I know that there are other folks who will probably either pile on or add different nuances. In the context of what do I look for in employees? Poise and maturity, I think, are two qualities that don't really show up on paper oftentimes. You try to pull it out of an interview, but ultimately in a work setting, young professionals have to work within the environment. And you want to see that poise and that maturity kind of ooze out, because you know that those are the professionals who will make great teammates. Everybody who comes to you is going to present their best selves on paper. And I think we'll see that the market is very competitive, but it's that maturity, it's that thoughtfulness, it's showing how prepared you are as you show up for an interview, right? If you're an interviewee and you've come to the job interview and you don't know anything about the company you're interviewing for, that's a signal. So who's prepared? If you're applying for a job or an opportunity and you don't quite know what the job is really all about, that's a signal. It's not a death sentence, but it's definitely a signal. And then the last thing you look for is who's inquisitive, because if you don't know, ask questions. And so I'll kind of pause there and pivot to some of the other panelists.
That's all great, especially the working from home part. Definitely coming to you live from my guest room, and the virtual background has saved me from a really bad background. So I'll turn it over to Kayla.
So I would like to think that I am not too old, but then when I think that I entered the workforce 10 years ago, which again, I don't feel like is that long ago, but it like, you know, adding a decade makes me realize that I'm not as young as I thought I was. Obviously understanding how things have changed. I also feel like I have a little bit of perspective with entering the workforce for today's group, because I actually started at my current company, Molson Coors, last March. So we were the very first onboarding group to go through a virtual onboarding, as well as during the pandemic. And I can say that not only for our company, but I think throughout many companies. So my start date was March 30th. And I think everyone will remember kind of where they were during that time frame of March 13th to March 30th, working from home for a couple weeks. And so I had a very quick transition into what the new norm was going to be, from working from home, getting set up on technology, having to meet every single coworker in a virtual environment, having to establish rapport with my boss and my team members in a virtual environment as well. And just things that I thought would be, obviously were not. And so I say that because I think that that's kind of where we still are today. And virtual interviews, as well as onboarding, I believe are probably here to stay. And we've seen a lot of efficiencies in technology as well. And you're able to work across, you know, so many different cities. I currently live in Denver. I work with team members in Chicago on a daily basis. It doesn't feel like we're skipping a beat. But it does bring new challenges, and kind of how are you just showing up in a virtual environment? And it's helpful for some who might not be as extroverted, but it's also tiring in a way that you have to make sure you're really letting your personality and your skills and your knowledge shine through. And so it's just working with a new muscle. And I would say that that also kind of brings me to what we look for in a team member, an employee. I think after last year, and we're still in it, we've all built a different type of resilience and a new way of working, a new way of interacting with one another, a new set of respect. And I think that that is only going to continue to need to now transform in the way that we're showing up for interviews, for a job, how we look at the world. So I do think kind of making sure that we're harnessing what everyone experienced last year and the challenges that we've all had, I think is important to keep with us, because it has made us stronger. It's challenged us. Hopefully we have some silver linings involved in it, but I do think it's very important to make sure that we're you know, not dwelling on the past, but remembering that as that has changed our future.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point. And the new way we're interacting in Zoom and dealing with Zoom fatigue and showing up in the right way virtually is something I don't think any of us had considered. We're just sort of flying the plane and building it at the same time. And with that, I'll transition to Sara.
Yeah, so a lot of great comments already. I too came up in the world of BlackBerry, and I was just sitting here wondering if I could still type an email with my eyes shut on one of those devices. But I will say, as far as work changing, without a doubt, this year I think has been the year of greatest change that probably our generation will ever see. And anything in the past, I think, pales in comparison. And I would say that I think one thing that I'm grateful that I learned early on in my career that I think a lot of people have been forced to learn this year is creating the right boundaries for themselves when it comes to your personal life and your professional life. I joke that where I'm sitting right now is it's my restaurant, it's my gym, it's my office, it's my kitchen. I mean, it's everything to me, right? But making sure that I separate work and really to prevent that fatigue that I think some people are experiencing. So it's important to know your boundaries, regardless of being virtual or in person. I think that's something that's good to learn early on in your career. As far as employees that I think I would look for, I think Carice gave a lot of good attributes. I would add communication to that list. I think you need to really be an effective communicator in any position that you are seeking going forward, particularly in this virtual scenario where it's all words and it's hard to read some of the body language that maybe you would have otherwise to give you some signals in a conversation. And I remember a mentor of mine also once said that you want to work with people you like. We spend 40 plus hours a week with our coworkers, and it's important we like them. Sometimes that's more time than we spend with our own families. And so, I think how you translate that into advice is, as you're looking at the next step in your career and interviewing, let your personality show, because people will want to work with people that they like. So.
Totally agree with that, and making sure you have those interpersonal connections, even though we may not have an interpersonal environment, is probably very key. And then I'll transition it to Rolando to close this set of questions out.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, no, I agree. COVID has completely changed how we do a lot, even in recruiting. You couldn't imagine how much we needed to do in person and how much we've been able to change our entire enterprise in order to be able to recruit in a virtual environment or something close to a virtual environment. I mean, we're looking at doing electronic signatures. We're looking at sending data directly to applicants, getting information from doctors and all that, just to be able to continue with the process. That's what we had to do. We had to shift and adapt. And the way we've completely changed, what we call transformation, has really taken us to another level. And I'm really excited for what that means, right? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the things that it said is the organizations that are winning in the 21st century are the ones that are able to make the business easier to complete with the consumer, right? And so from where I am in recruiting for the Navy, one thing that's really important is it's not necessarily accessible, particularly to our Hispanic community, about all the opportunities that are available. And so making that process easier is absolutely critical in order for us to have a warfighting advantage. What I will also say, though, is since I entered the workforce, the thing that has really made a huge difference across the world is the way that companies, organizations as a whole, they look at what we refer to as culture of excellence, organizational culture, and how the interactions between people affect an entire enterprise. The fact that senior level people are talking about sustainability, or even with the Navy, green fleet, how do we transition away from toward clean energy? Thinking about how what we do as an organization, whether it's the Navy or corporate America, how that impacts the rest of the world and how we can be good stewards to the world in a lot of different aspects is what I think has changed the most in the 12 years that I've been in the Navy. Okay, so to answer the other question, which is what do we look for, or what would I look for? Well, what I think is absolutely critical for anybody who's entering the workforce, especially now, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to keep learning. Okay, so whether it's listening to podcasts or reading books, you have access to so much information in the world. And if your brain isn't constantly being challenged, and if your brain isn't constantly receiving information, and you aren't constantly figuring out a way how to use that, then you're going to be left behind. That may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but in my line of work, right, where if things get kinetic, when we say kinetic, we mean things get violent between the United States and other nations, and there's several nations that come to mind off the top of my head right now, and I'm sure you guys can think of them too. We need to be able to fight, and we need to be able to do it quickly, and we need to be able to think through real challenges that are going to affect people's lives. That's why I wear the uniform, to defend our nation and her allies. And so if you aren't constantly thinking, if you aren't constantly learning, if you aren't able to adapt, if you aren't able to lead through change, you're either going to be left behind or worse. So I know that may seem very dark and deep, but I hope everybody here is able to benefit from that.
No, that's great advice, and learning as a part of leadership is absolutely crucial. So definitely points, very good points. So I'm going to remind the audience now, if you can start dropping in some key questions into the Q&A, because we'll be doing that right after this last question of mine, and hopefully have some great questions from audience members that we can relay to the panelist, or panelists can just take up on their own. So the last question, I'm going to change the order here a little bit, is what piece of advice would you give yourself as a college student or a young professional, first-year professional, that, you were thinking, hey, this is going to be the biggest deal in the world, and something actually turned out not to be the biggest deal in the world, or, maybe it's, relaxing or focusing more on a part of your career. I'll start with Sara. What would you tell yourself graduating college, or, that first job, what would you tell yourself first day of work?
Sure. Pressure of being the first to answer. This one I actually struggled with a little bit, but what I'm going to say is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive, but just bear with me. At the end of the day, what I've learned is I'm really not that important. And let me explain to you how I came to that conclusion. I did have the honor of serving Marco Rubio as his legislative director when he was running for president. As high pressure and as stressful as it sounds, and probably more so than you can even imagine. So it was a very difficult time for me professionally. And I remember I was getting to my breaking point of, this is not sustainable for me. I'm not being a good employee if I don't take some time to myself. So at some point in the fall during the campaign, I just took a week off, turned off that BlackBerry, and totally went off the radar. And I needed to do that for my own personal mental health. And I came back after that week, and guess what? Everything was just fine. I was not that important. And it was just an epiphany and a paradigm shift for me, because I realized the amount of pressure I was putting on myself, and to have, grown in my own self-awareness on what that feels like and what that looks like. I've led a happier life since. So I think a good amount of humility and understanding, that the world will go on without you is helpful to keep in mind. So hopefully that's helpful, not totally pessimistic and discouraging, but.
That's great advice. I'm just starting to learn that one. So if someone can take it early in their career, it's better. I'll transition to you, Kayla.
Sara, I would completely agree with that. I would also add that I wish I knew a little bit more early on about the power of the network and power of a network and mentors. So I'm a first generation college graduate for my family. So I felt like that was already kind of one big step as well as one big pressure. For me, that didn't come with having a network. I didn't have kind of built-in relationships with companies or local leadership. So I kind of needed to start that on my own. And I actually interned for Colorado's governor 10 years ago. And a lot of those relationships that I had during my internship, I now work with them in the community in a lot of other spaces. But I think not really understanding just the power of that network and how those relationships stay with you for so long. Again, I think we do a great job of getting students to college, and then it's like, now what? We have these big goals and dreams and aspirations, and if you're likely on this, you're a type A driven, like what's next? And so not just utilizing your skills and your education, but also the people around you. So I would also say, if you don't feel like you have a mentor or you don't feel like you have enough connections, utilize myself. I'm sure anyone else on here would agree with that. Find us on LinkedIn. Sometimes it's just needing someone to kind of bounce where you're headed off of that doesn't fall in your inner circle, that is nice to just talk to. So I would consider that mentorship or relationship, but just recognizing the power of that.
That's great. Next up, I'll kick it back to Rolando.
Yeah, so when we look at what we're trying to build with the Navy and with ANSO, the Hispanic Latino Leader Resource Group that we have for the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard, network and mentoring is hugely important. But I think the other thing that's also important to understand is that there's kind of different roles that you have, and when you're an individual as a college student or as somebody who's entering the workforce, you have to look at every relationship you have, whether they're your subordinate, whether they're your senior, and you have to ask them what role do they play. Okay, so there are individuals in my life that play the role model role, which is somebody that I can see, I can visually put myself in their situation and say, hey, I'm able to envision myself doing that job. So, my boss right now, Commander Navy Recruiting Command, he's Rear Admiral Dennis Velez. He was from Puerto Rico, but I see things about me, things that I relate to in him. And so I can now put myself in the situation of, hey, maybe one day I can be a one-star admiral, right? I think role modeling is very important, being able to visualize yourself in that role. The second thing that you need to think about with the relationships that you build around you is a coach. And coaches focus on specific skill sets. So whether that's communication, like Sara was referring to, or something else, some of the best coaches I've had for specific areas when it comes to time management, organization, how to express myself, have been junior to me, right? The other one is obviously the mentor, the person that you can talk to that may have been where you are, or where you've been, especially when you've hit a roadblock, that can kind of talk you through it. Hey, how do you get around it? Or maybe I'm feeling like I'm not being perceived the way I want to be. How do I get beyond that in my career? And then the last one that you really need, and there's different terms, and I know some of the terms can be controversial, but advocates or sponsors, somebody that's actually going to pick up the phone and make sure that you get that opportunity that you deserve, that you've proven you've deserved. And if you frame your relationships when you're in mentoring, if you frame your network based on who you know around you, that and understanding what role they can play in your life, and that may shift, right? Somebody may be your mentor now and be your coach later, or vice versa, right? If you understand that and you frame it that way, then what you're going to end up realizing is that you can get value from everyone in some way, shape, or form. And by doing that, you can also figure out how you can provide more value to them. And when you do that, that's when you build the growth that you really need to see in order for you to be even more successful. People only care about people that they don't care about. They care about people that care about them, if that makes sense. I know there's a better way to put it. I've heard a better quote, but hopefully you guys know what I'm trying to say.
That's a great way to put it. And we'll close it out with Karis.
Well, my advice is nowhere near as thoughtful as everybody else's. Step one, though, do take photos and journal, right? This has been an incredible ride, and we've had some very fantastic experiences. If I had the sense of mind to have just whipped out my phone or camera at the time and taken a photo, or taken notes about some of those incredible experiences, I think I'd appreciate that a little bit more. Let's see, invest in Apple, Amazon, and some of those companies that blew up, right? Take vacations. You know, take care of yourself. I didn't early on take as much intentional vacation time as I needed to. The last bit of advice I would say is do get a pedicure. About 18 months ago when we started COVID, I got my first pedicure. Oh my God, I've been missing that my entire life. Now there's a moral to some of this though. It's definitely take care of your mental well-being, be fiscally in tune, get your financial house in order, as well as take care of your body. So those are the 3 pieces of advice I would give myself back in college.
That's great. And we've got a lot of questions now, so I'm going to condense a couple of them. We've only got about 10 more minutes together, so I will be directing questions to individual panelists. So one of the questions, and this is for you, Sara, given you mentioned your time on the Hill for quite a bit, you know, for those that work in the public and private sector, but really the public sector, what's the best advice you could give about seeing what path to take on Capitol Hill, for example, the questions to ask in getting an internship or a job, and you know, really what issue areas to emphasize in an interview. It might not even be policy, just you know, the issue areas of your passion for an issue that you know someone who is trying to get that first internship on Capitol Hill or that first job as an LC or a staff assistant could find useful.
Yeah, a lot to cover there. You know, I think first of all, do public sector first and private sector. And that seems to make the most sense financially. And I will say, you know, getting out of college, maybe facing some student loans, the public sector salary is probably depressing, but the value of getting that experience in the public sector really catapults you and your value to the private sector over time. And so I do think I would start there. I think, you know, think about where you want to be in 10 years and go talk to those people that are there. That's what I did. As I mentioned, I knew I wanted to be a lobbyist. And so I went and talked to lobbyists, and perhaps it was the profession I chose, but they all wanted to help me get on the Hill, which was very nice. You know, going back to the point on networking, you can network is really, you know, think about where you want to go, start talking to all the people in that field. And for me, that led to a paid internship, that led to my internship on the Hill, that led to my first job on the Hill. So just start talking to people that do what you want to be doing in your future. As far as questions go in interviews, my advice on this is don't forget that your relationship with your employer is exactly that. It's a relationship. Think about it, you know, like how you date people. What do you want to know? What do you want to know about what the work is, what the office environment is? I mean, anything that will help you make a decision about whether or not the position that you're interviewing for is the right position for you. Because it works both ways. And I think interviewees often feel like the employer has the upper hand, but if you're confident and know what you're going after, that will show itself. And those are the types of questions that you should focus on. So
That's great advice. And Rolando, since you brought this up in your comments, one of the questions we have is in terms of personal professional development, what do you recommend? A book, a particular podcast, someone to follow on social media? Where do we go for some of these great bits of wisdom?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't have the Rolodex. What I tell you is going back to financial literacy. I've started looking at real estate, and so I've been listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. But the things that I have my like an accountability log, a monthly accountability log, if that makes any sense. And the 4 things that I kind of go back to over and over again: Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review. There's a article, there's like a monthly article that's released by Hillsdale College called Imprimis, and then Foreign Affairs Magazine. So I dabble, I get a lot of information from a lot of different sources, but the things that I constantly try to go back to keep my brain thinking ahead are those: Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review, Foreign Affairs Magazine, and Imprimis.
That's great to hear. And I think time for the last question will go to Karis, because you mentioned having a good work-life balance and making time for oneself. I've got to get a pedicure soon too, I guess now. Quick question is, I think the question really is about how do you make that happen? We all talk about work-life balance. We all talk about self-care and taking care of ourselves and bringing our best self to work. But what does that look like when you have, 5 projects and a couple emails from the boss and, still something coming down the pipe next month and a major report due in 2 months? And where do you start drawing the line in a practical sense? And how does one do that? I'm still learning that part too. So that question's for me more than anyone else.
Well, there's no one size fits all, right? But when you begin to look at any situation and you can triage it, you begin to understand that everybody's emergency is not necessarily your emergency. So you start identifying what needs to happen most immediately, and you tier that out, second, third, but ultimately there are still only 24 hours in the day, right? One of the things that I did early on is I got a coach. I was at USDA and I got an executive coach. She went through and asked me a battery of questions. She asked, what's most important to you? And I gave the obligatory, well, my family is the most important. Well, she put that on the paper. How much time do you spend doing X, Y, and Z? We wrote it out. How much time do you spend at work? We listed it out. Before long, my time management began to tell a story. The amount of resources I devoted to projects, it told a story. And so I would say be intentional about identifying what those big rocks are, but at the same token, you've got to prioritize how you're going to use your time and your resources. So it wasn't for me until I got a better understanding of that, where I started to be more intentional. It sounds silly, but I started to put family time on the calendar because I was very effective at managing work time, everything. And Rolando, I'm a Marine, so I go wherever the calendar tells me to go. If it's not on my calendar, I don't show up. I was getting home and I was immediately turning off. And so when my wife needed me, I had already mentally turned off my work self for the day. So it wasn't until I got more intentional about finding that type of balance and structure, the same type of quality intent that I put into being a top-notch professional. I want to be a top-notch dad. I want to be a top-notch husband. I want to be all of the above. You've got to be just as intentional in managing your time, your resources, and your calendar.
That's really great to hear, and that's a really practical way to do so. Well, I think we're coming up against time, so I want to thank the panelists so much for the great discussion. And the obligatory picture, I think, is coming up again. So I know Brianna will definitely take a photo. So Brianna, if you can tell me in the chat that you're ready. I'm ready to direct the photo, I guess. All right, she's ready. All right, so let's count down 1, 2, 3. Okay, she got it. All right. Well, thank you so very much. I'm going to turn this back over to CHLI's president and CEO, Ann Gomez Orta, who will introduce CHLI Chairman Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
All right. Thank you all for your input. I took down some notes as well that I can share with other intern students and some lessons on here too that I thought I could probably share this with some board members too. So thank you all. I greatly appreciate it. Please stay for the rest of the program if you can. A special thank you, Keith. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you for also sharing with us a little bit more about what you're doing with the Alumni Association as we waited also for a couple of the members to join us. I'm going to now introduce our chairman, who will then introduce our keynote speaker for today. Let me get to that other page here. So our chairman and founder, the Honorable Lincoln Diaz-Balart, he was in Congress for about 18 years representing South Florida. He was the first Hispanic in history to be named to the powerful House Rules Committee. And additionally, he was the author of the Nicaraguan Adjustment and Central American Relief Act, of 1997. That act granted legal residency to thousands of immigrants in the United States who were at risk for deportation. He has also received a number of awards from many, many leaders around the world for his humanitarian work. And while serving as a member in Congress, that's when he started CHLI in 2003 with two other South Floridians, with Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart and the Honorable Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. So please join me to welcome the chairman and founder of CHLI, the Honorable Lincoln Diaz-Balart.
I'm so sorry I can't be with you today in Washington, D.C., but what a privilege it is for me to be able to introduce Florida's Lieutenant Governor. I've known Janelle Nuñez for many years. I remember when she was in the private sector, advocating for justice, for the best issues in our community, for human rights. She's an exemplary public servant. I remember then she went to the legislature. She was an extraordinary legislator. And then now she's the Lieutenant Governor of Florida. What a woman, what a leader, what an example for all of us. You know, we in CHLI are so honored to be able to have Janelle Nuñez with us today in our conference. It's so important for our future leaders to meet her. And what a privilege and honor it is for me to introduce my friend, Florida's Lieutenant Governor, Janelle Nuñez.
Well, thank you so much, Lincoln, for that very kind introduction. I know that you and Ileana, who I believe is also on, and your brother Mario are the stalwarts of our community. You were the pioneers, and I don't say that because you're old. I say that because you did so many good things, not only for our state in the legislature here in Tallahassee, but also in DC. And so you all have really been, from my perspective, just great inspirational leaders, mentors, models in terms of what it truly means to be a public servant. So for you to introduce me today is my honor and my privilege. So thank you for that. And I also want to thank the CHLI team and everyone that's on today for allowing me to be part of your Future Leaders Conference. I know that you all have varied interests, and so some of you may have an interest in politics. Some of you may not, but I will repeat the words of Pericles where he said, just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. So certainly I hope that we're able to have a great dialogue today. And again, for those of you that are serving in your respective states, thank you for being a part of this. And for those of you that look to be future leaders, no matter what the industry, I appreciate you being here today. Just a little bit about my career outside of politics, because I certainly never expected to be in politics, but I'll get to that in a minute. I had worked in the legislature as a legislative aide, so I had been working for a state representative who then went to the state senate. I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly with the legislative process, and there's lots of good. Sometimes there's some bad, and sometimes there's also some ugly. But I can assure you that the good overweighs the bad for sure. And I got a fond appreciation for the legislative process and what it means to everyday citizens, individuals from all walks of life. That actually led me to a career in healthcare, which again, when you're in your career and when you're studying and you think that your career is going to take a certain path, I would challenge you to always be open to new and different viewpoints, new and different ideas, new and different opportunities, because I really never had an interest in healthcare either. So didn't have an interest in politics, didn't have an interest in healthcare, but my careers went squarely smack in the middle of both of those industries. So I went to go work at Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is one of the largest public hospitals in the country. I had a great run there. I was able to serve as Vice President of Government Affairs, which is really where I interacted most with Congressman Diaz-Balart and Congressman Ros-Lehtinen, and I would darken their doors, and certainly they were always kind to me in that capacity. And then I went to go work for a private for-profit hospital system, Kendall Regional Medical Center and Aventura Medical Center here in Miami. And then I did some consulting on my own. At some point in that healthcare career, working with legislators, working on healthcare policy, overseeing the budget, making sure that our hospital was funded, all of those things gave me a sudden interest in perhaps running for the legislature. And in 2010, I did that. I was able to win my first House seat And here in Florida, we have 8-year term limits. So I was able to serve all 4 years. All 4 terms rather, for a total of 8 years. And at that point, I was looking at taking a little hiatus from politics. But again, as I mentioned, being open-minded to different opportunities, I got a call at some point that summer, my final year in the legislature, from a then congressman known as Congressman Ron DeSantis, asking me if I would be interested in serving as his running mate in the 2018 gubernatorial election. I politely declined the first time. It was just a lot going on. My husband was looking forward to me being home again. My kids had mixed reviews. So I politely declined. And it's a long story and I won't go into it, but he came back again, asked me to reconsider. I went back, spoke to the family. Let's just say I got a majority vote. It wasn't unanimous, but I did get the majority to support me. So I ended up going and running on the ticket with him. And, we've been working ever since. So it's really been a unique privilege to serve as lieutenant governor. But I think, obviously everyone's path is a little different. And I'm sure that some of you, like I said, may not have an interest in politics, at least pursuing a career in politics. But I will tell you that for me, serving in this capacity, serving as a leader in the state, one of the most important things is, making sure that you are principled. And I think that really applies no matter what field you're in. You're faced every day with decisions. Some of them are very difficult decisions. You have to make sure that you are addressing things from a principled standpoint. And that is especially true in politics. And I'm sure those that are on the call that serve in some capacity would agree with me. And so what I'll tell you is, I love this quote. Thomas Jefferson said, "In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock." And that advice will certainly serve you well as you go into your respective fields, as you start to, increase the levels of leadership that you're in. And for me, I think that is very telling. As a leader, as a future leader, what is it that really guides you? So for me, making sure you stick to your principles, making sure that you're also a leader that underscores humility. That's not something in high demand in politics. In fact, I'm sure you probably think most politicians are egomaniacs. And what I'll tell you is that I think humility is truly an underpinning of a successful leader. Oftentimes you have to tweet about yourself, you have to tout yourself, you have to, sell yourself to the voters. But I think that when you're a real, genuine, humble individual, that really is seen by the voters, the people that elect you. So those are some of the things that for me are extremely important: humility, making sure you're principled. And then also, I think what we oftentimes undervalue is a leader that listens. And so sometimes listening to your constituency doesn't always mesh well with sticking to your principles. But I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, in fact, probably 10 times out of 10, even if you disagree with your elected official, if you know that they're principled and you know they're approaching their decision-making from a place of values and principles, I think that people can agree to disagree. And I think that people can see beyond one particular vote, one particular decision. Because in politics, you're making decisions every day. So I think it's the totality of your decision-making. It's the totality of who you are as a person. And I think all of those things clearly represent, you are able to represent them well. I am the daughter of Cuban immigrants, and I know many of you share a very similar story. My parents came here to this country in 1961. My dad came first. My mom and my oldest sister stayed behind, and they were fortunate that my mom and my sister were able to reunite with my dad here in this country. They went through a lot of struggles. I'm sure, like many of your families, perhaps have similar stories. They obviously had difficult times. My dad had to work numerous jobs trying to save enough money. They were eventually able to get on their feet. They were eventually able to provide for my sisters and me. And so I'll tell you, there's so many great stories I wish I could share about my parents, their sacrifice, their courage, their leadership. But I don't think we have enough time for me to go into all the ins and outs of my parents. But, you know, what strikes me and what always struck me as most important, my dad passed away a few months ago. My mom and my dad, they were both so grateful to this country. And I think that, you know, whether you're a first generation American like me, or you're a seventh generation, I think the one thing that truly unites us as Americans is gratitude. And that, I think, is seen so much more by individuals like my parents, perhaps like your family, that came to this country with nothing more than the shirt on their back. They came to this country in search of the proverbial American dream. And I can tell you that for me, knowing the sacrifices that they did for me, oftentimes people ask me, oh, your parents must be so proud of you. And it's quite the contrary. I'm the one that's proud of them, because imagine leaving your country, coming to another country, not speaking the language, not having any money, any resources. So it really was a tremendous act of courage and bravery on their part. And I would not be where I am today were it not for them. And again, I know my story is very similar to so many of your stories. And I think that so many of us heard stories growing up, sitting around the dining room table, being able to listen and learn, you know, all the challenges that we faced. And that's not to say that we don't have additional challenges. We know that we have many challenges that we're facing. And you as leaders, I think, have an opportunity to address those challenges and to really make sure that we continue what I believe very strongly is in the American dream. And I think that there are so many opportunities for us to demonstrate all the great things that this country has, and still address many of the challenges that we will continue to have as we move forward as a nation. So really and truly, I think the character traits that I talked about, my personal story, all of those things together have really given me a great perspective in terms of, you know, the issues that we address. Clearly, Florida is the third largest state in the country. We have a very diverse state, a lot of challenges, but a lot of great things going on in Florida as well. And so I often think about, I'm a mother of three. I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old son, and a 15-year-old son. And I often tease them and I tell them, you guys don't know how lucky you have it. You don't know how good you have it. I call them the instant gratification generation, because from the time they were born, they're able to get TV shows on demand, food delivered at their doorsteps, information at their fingertips. Yeah, you know, for those of us that are a little bit older, you have no idea the struggles we had to go through just to get a research paper done. We had to go to the library, we had to go through the card catalog system. I know that's a foreign concept for some of you, but really and truly, I think that this generation sometimes takes for granted the wonderful opportunities that we have, and really the ease with which you're able to get information. And while you are the most connected generation by far, I often think sometimes you're also the most isolated because of the way that you work, because of the way that you interact, because of the way that you develop your relationships. So that's just a little soapbox of mine. I often, whenever I talk to young people, I always stress to them the importance of relationship building, because I'm a firm believer in developing relationships over time, especially in the professional setting. I've had a number of mentors, a number of colleagues, people that have poured into me and that have taken the time to support me, to push me, to encourage me. And those are all things that I think everyone needs in their life, no matter if you're in your 20s or if in your 50s. You can always learn from someone. And so I would encourage you to seek out mentors, to seek out individuals that can provide you with great perspective. You know, when you're young, you think you know it all, you think you got the world, you know, figured out. But I'll tell you, with age comes wisdom, and I still need a lot of wisdom, but I've learned to sort of sit back, listen, try to view things from different perspectives, and try to understand where their people are coming from. Again, that's something that I think is really important in politics, but nonetheless, no matter what area you're in, I think when you approach things, whether it's a complex issue at work or whether it's a managerial issue, I think that if you're able to take the time to listen, oftentimes many of the situations that we have, many of the struggles that we have is lack of communication. And the way that we communicate nowadays mostly via text, mostly through a computer or through a phone, does not lend itself to really solid communication skills. So those are some of the things that I would really encourage you to rethink how you interact with others, both professionally and personally for that matter. But again, I just want to thank CHLI for this opportunity. I have Nikki Whiting working with me. She is a former staffer of Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. I know that she is friendly with many of you in CHLI, so I think that she's educated me in terms of the importance of CHLI and all the great work that you all do. And again, I'm inspired by those of you that have come before me, Lincoln, Ileana, and I really do appreciate CHLI and your mission to advance our communities through diversity of thought and really preparing young Hispanics in their future quest as leaders of tomorrow. So thank you all so very much for the opportunity just to share a few words.
Oh, thank you. It is our pleasure and our honor for you to be able to take time from your schedule and be here with us and to share the words of wisdom, everything from building the relationships to sharing your story, and to how you are in your position now and what you're doing and advocating for not just Florida, but you really are inspiring to others beyond the state, to many of us women who are always looking up for role models, for the students that we have here. A lot of times people don't understand how to connect with role models, and sometimes just hearing your story is very powerful to be able to learn from that. And so thank you for taking the time. Before we say goodbye, dear, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask all of the other panelists who are here for our next discussion and some who were here for the previous discussion that have their video muted. I'm going to go ahead and ask them to unmute their video so they can join you for a photo.
Well, the only thing I'm upset about is that I don't have that cool CHLI background.
That's okay. So we have some people from different parts of the world here, but I'm going to go ahead because I want to make sure that you know who's here as well. So I'm going to just do a quick little, I'm going to say your name, and if you can please finish your name, your title, and where you are so that our Lieutenant Governor knows who you are and what company or department you represent. I'm going to start with my bosses first. So I got to start with my board member, Omar.
Hey, hi. Omar Franco with Becker and Jeanette and I used to work in the state legislature together. So we learned together the ropes. So great seeing you here, and thank you for doing this.
Likewise, Omar, and congratulations on your twins.
Oh, thanks.
Great schools, great choices.
Thank you.
And then my other boss from our advisory council, Norberto.
I had to make sure that I was off of mute. Norberto Salinas from Intel Corporation. I'm glad to be here and glad to hear your insight there, Lieutenant Governor. It was very helpful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
One of our other members here, Angel, Dr. Colon Rivera.
Hey everyone, I'm Angel Colon Rivera. I am the Chief of Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs at the Census Bureau and appointed by the Biden-Harris administration. Good to be here.
Very good. I did a lot of work with the Census Bureau last year. So I appreciate the work that you all do.
Karis.
Hey, good afternoon. Karis Gutter, Head of North America Government and Industry Affairs for Corteva AgriScience. Corteva is the only U.S. headquartered multinational company dedicated to seed crop protection and digital solutions.
Excellent.
Rolando.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Lieutenant Commander Rolando Machado Jr. from Miami.
All right.
I actually serve right now as the executive assistant to Rear Admiral Dennis Velez, originally from Puerto Rico. He's the commander of Navy Recruiting Command. So I'm here representing him as well.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sara.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Sara Guerrero. I am the Placement Director for the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association and Press Secretary for Senator Catherine Cortez Masto.
Great. Thank you.
Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Benavides. I'm a communications director for Ranking Member Rob Portman in his role on the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And though I'm originally from Ohio, my parents actually live in Florida now. So just want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for her great leadership in my new adopted home state.
Great. Well, we hope you'll join your parents at some point.
Janelle?
Hi, my name is Janelle Perez. I am with Doctors Healthcare Plans here in Miami, Florida.
All right, great. Good to see you. A lot of Miamians today.
And Sara Garcia, you don't have your video on, but if you have a chance there, you can unmute that. There you are. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Sara Garcia, and I currently schedule for Congressman Van Taylor. Sorry for the dog. I'm in Texas's 3rd District, and I did the CHLI Global Leader Program as well in 2018.
All right, excellent.
All right. So with that, want to just kind of take a quick pause. So the way we do these pictures is you look into the camera on your computer, wherever that is, and I'm going to count to 3. And Brianna on our team is going to do a screenshot. We share the screenshots in our social media, and is also a way to thank you and recognize all of you who were here. And so this is a special photo to join with the Lieutenant Governor. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think Brianna's got that. So thank you all. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. I am now we're going to take a little pause here, and we're going to thank one of our sponsors, Best Buy, with a short video so we can transition that and then get to the next panel. All right, so here we are back for the second part of our Future Leaders Conference. I am going to introduce our moderator for this conversation here. We have Sara Garcia. Sara is from Santa Clarita, California, and is a 2019 graduate of the University of California, San Diego, with a BA in Political Science and International Relations. Sara is currently the scheduler for Representative Van Taylor of Texas. She is also the treasurer for the CHLI Alumni Association and Congressional Hispanic Staff Association's GOP Deputy Recruitment Director, in hopes of giving back to the Hispanic community that helped launch her career on the Hill. So Sara, the floor is yours, dear, to introduce the panel members for the next conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary Ann. I'm excited to be here. Wanted to give a warm welcome to our panelist guests. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll go ahead and provide a brief biography of each guest and then go into our discussion. So our first guest is Dr. Angel Colon Rivera. Dr. Colon Rivera currently serves as Chief of the U.S. Census Bureau's Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Affairs. Prior to joining the Census Bureau, Dr. Colon Rivera served as Senior Advisor to CHLI Board Member Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey. In this role, he spearheaded the Senator's Hispanic Issues portfolio as staff lead on the Senate Democratic Hispanic Task Force. He was the principal liaison to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and principal advisor on issues regarding Puerto Rico, the census, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our next guest is Emily Benavides. Emily joined Senator Rob Portman's office in 2016 as press secretary and has risen from deputy communications director to now serving as Senator Portman's communications director in his role as ranking member for the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. She advises Senator Portman on his media presence in her home state of Ohio and nationwide. She has also served on 2 presidential campaigns, a gubernatorial campaign, and downtown DC advocacy group. Our next guest is Norberto Salinas. Norberto is the Director of Patent Policy at Intel. He has held several senior roles, including global workforce policy and managing engagement with the Democratic Caucus since joining in 2016. In addition, he has represented Intel on many industry-related committees and coalitions. He serves on the board of the Hispanic Lobbyists Association and the Texas State Society. He is also a member of the CHLI Advisory Council. The Hill publication annually lists him on the top lobbyist list as well. Before Intel, Roberto was a senior counsel on the House Committee on the Judiciary, where he handled a broad policy portfolio, including intellectual property, state taxation, sports law, arbitration, legal services, the budget, and other technology and telecom related policy areas. Before that, he practiced law in DC. And our final guest is Sara Garcia. Sara is the Constituency Media Press Secretary for Senator Cortez Masto. A Colombian American, she is passionate about connecting Spanish speakers in the US with their government and democratic process. Sara is also the placement director for the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association. And just wanted to say thank you so much to all our panelists again for being here today. The focus of our panel today is going to be all your journeys to lives in public service and recommendations that you have for college students and young professionals hoping to embark on a career on the Hill or in other areas in the public sector. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and throw out some general questions, and if you'd like to answer, you can just unmute your microphone. First question we have is, what has helped you get to where you are, and what advice would you have for young professionals who want to set off in a similar direction? I see Emily. I see Norberto. Emily, go ahead.
All right. So I come from, a background where my parents had no connection to politics or Washington, D.C. And so, like so many in the Hispanic community, I had to create my own network when I got to D.C. And that is the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone when you get to DC, is to immediately make friends with as many folks around you. You never know when you're going to see them again in DC. It's a very small town. It seems like it's a big town, especially when you're coming from a small town in Ohio, like I was. But you will inevitably run into folks again. And so, treating everyone with kindness and honesty is so important, and always being willing to offer to help in some sort of way, whether it was in my first internship when I was making coffee for folks, and through that earned the goodwill to be able to help write memos and attend briefings on behalf of the congressman, to now being in a senior staff role, but still offering to help build binders or whatever needs to be done to help committee staff get the job done. Because you always want to build that goodwill and show folks that you're in to make sure that everyone succeeds.
Thank you. Great answer. Our next question is, do you remember a specific experience of where you wish you had done something different? If you were to do it over, what would you change? See Dr. Colon Rivera.
Hey, that's actually probably the most difficult question for me to answer, in the sense of, when the idea of, what would you have done different? Like, did you regret that? I feel like that happens to me every day, right? Like I have the internal conversations every day. I was like, oh man, I should have said this to somebody, or remember that one thing that, changed the course of your life. I should have done something else. And that process, that internal process of thinking about what could you change in your life? What could you have done better back then that would have made things different? I don't particularly subscribe to that process, because even the dumb decisions that I made somehow, the jobs that I took that I probably took out of desperation because I had mounting bills and I didn't have money to eat, or, the just the silly decisions that you make in everyday life, all have led me to where I'm at right now. So, again, it's this dichotomous relationship internally between understanding that I have those internal regrets every day of wishing that I had done things differently, but at the same time, it's those decisions, the good decisions and the bad decisions that I've made throughout my life that ultimately have led me here. And if you understood my trajectory, this is kind of a thing that shouldn't have happened to me, right? I shouldn't be talking to this group of established professionals and young aspiring professionals. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and piggy off that. Norberto or Sara, do you have anything to add or want to answer on this question?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll speak up to this, but I also kind of want to touch upon your earlier question about, because I think this is thinking about where I am now, and then how did I get to where I am, and kind of the advice there. It's, the same sort of situation. I don't think there's anything I can specifically say that I would regret, or if I could do something different, because you're just building upon as you go along in your professional career, personal life, everything, right? But it's something that now that I look back on, and as the years have gone by, I think about what could I have done differently? Would I be in the same spot? I don't know. I could be somewhere different, but I could end up in the same role now. And I think part of it is along the way to learn as much as I can, and to learn from as many people as possible. So I think even the Lieutenant Governor had said earlier something along the lines of, relationships, and talk to people and learn. And I agree with that. I think that's something that if I could do something differently, or at least improve upon it from earlier in my life, it would be to learn as much as possible, read as much as possible, listen, ask questions, so that I could get to where I'm trying to go sooner, if at all possible. And so that's what I would say. That's the kind of advice that I would give, the suggestions I would give. It's continue to learn, and learn as much as possible, because you don't know what may interest you or may not interest you, and put you on a different path that if instead of remaining focused on something, you want to make sure that everything is available to you. And so that's what I would say about it is, what could I have done differently a little bit? It's learn more and earlier on.
Great, thank you. And for this next question, I think we're going to start with Dr. Colon Rivera. I have a couple of specific set questions for y'all. So Dr. Rivera, why is the census important? You're on mute.
Yeah, I realize that you do, 100 meetings a day on Zoom or on something else, and the classic mistake. Anyway,
It happens all the time.
I mean, the census really is, in my opinion, probably the greatest statistical organization in the world, and scientific organization in the world. It collects information about every aspect of American social and economic life, from people's ancestry, the types of jobs that we have, educational attainment, all the way down to whether you have access to internet or not. The data that the Bureau collects, it sits at the crossroads of every agency in the federal government, every policy decision maker, whether it's from Congress down to the local mayor to make decisions based on the population information that person has, all the way up to the White House. And more importantly, it's constitutional mandate. Every 10 years, the Census Bureau counts every living person in the United States, which provides one of the foundational bedrocks of our democracy, right? It determines, it's that number that determines how many legislative seats are apportioned. So in other words, how many members of Congress each state has, and which is dependent on the population count. And in turn, how many members of Congress each state has, determines the amount of electoral college votes that the president and presidential nominees will get, during the election. So from its constitutional mandate to inform and build upon our democracy, to its mission to collect all kinds of data when it comes to the American populace to inform policymakers, I think the importance of the census cannot be, understated.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And then our next question will be for Sara. Sara, I have a question that why are there so few Hispanic and Latinos in government? And how do you think that we can encourage and help Hispanic and Latinos professionally grow?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sarah. I mean, with the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association, one of our main goals is to not just be able to have more Latinos come to the Hill and join government, but also to be able to make sure that they're comfortable when they're here and to create a community for them. I think oftentimes a lot of us, like similar to you guys, I don't come from a background with a family in politics really at all. And we all kind of have to make our own way. And that gets a little lonely sometimes and definitely a little scary when you don't know who to go to for like a gut check or is this normal? And similar to what Emily mentioned, the importance of mentors and having folks that are looking out for you is so essential to be able to really get anything done. So I think it's something that will take time, but I think we're certainly on our way to be able to get those numbers up. I know on the Democratic side, we have the Senate Diversity Initiative, and that's a really interesting way to mark the diversity in certain offices and to see really what offices are doing what work to ensure that we can have a workplace as diverse as the states that we all work for.
Great, thank you. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but could you give us a couple of reasons why one should join CHSA, especially for those interns and young professionals that are thinking about coming up to the Hill? What would you say to them to get them to join?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, even just giving you like an anecdotal experience, like my own career, a lot of the things that I've been able to do have been because of the relationships that I was able to build through CHSA. And again, it's like a family, right? We all look out for each other and we're all working to be sure that we're able to, if you are into comms, like you're the best comm staffer that you can be. If you're ledge, you're the best ledge staffer that you can be. And so it's really a way for Latinos on the Hill to find their own community. And it's a wonderful environment to be able to solidify the fact that, you Latinos do deserve to take up space in a place that's traditionally not very diverse. So it's a great community. It's fun. You make great friends, and it's definitely a worthwhile investment of your time if you want to advance your career as well.
Definitely, and I can attest. My next question is for Emily. As someone who has served on 2 presidential campaigns, a gubernatorial campaign, and worked for a senator that's up for re-election, how do you think campaigning compares to the official side of the Hill? Do you recommend one over the other?
So thanks for the question. I love both roles. I think that no matter what you are focused on, you learn a lot in an official office as you're processing legislation and, recognizing that obviously your boss is, has to answer to their constituents. And so, you also learn a lot on a campaign, especially in, I think on a campaign, you really learn as much in one day as you do in a month in an official office, just because things move so fast on campaigns, especially at the national level. You get like even if you're not in comms, you learn a lot of crisis communication skills. And the biggest thing is that you expand your network significantly. I haven't directly applied for a job since I've worked on presidential campaigns. It's just because I've gotten referred to folks as a campaign ended or as a job ended. And it's in every aspect, you're expanding your horizons, you're learning in both sides. So I think that they are both great tracks. And I think that it's definitely something that you should consider if you're in one, maybe taking a time to to move over to the other for a little while and getting that perspective. Just because I think someone that's campaigning needs to understand what it means to be in the official office and processing legislation, just as someone in the official office needs to understand what it's like to campaign to get to the office. I think they really go hand in hand. And I just highly recommend them. And especially, when folks are young and you have the ability to move for a campaign, that's really the time to do it.
Definitely. I appreciate your insight, and you never know if you don't try it. So definitely echoing on that. Our next question is for Moderator. What is one of the biggest challenges currently facing the tech industry?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for that question. And I want to say thank you for and CHLI for having me on this panel. It's important. I'm glad to participate. And although, regarding the question, although, we read and hear a lot about the many challenges facing the tech industry, one of those that I think is often forgotten, and in my view, the most important for the industry, but also just the economy in general, is how to ensure that the tech industry has a strong and capable current and future workforce. And so one of the things I know at Intel, what we're working on, and a lot of different policymakers also are working on, is how do we ensure that we do have a STEM workforce that is diverse. And the way to think about it is we need to expand the workforce. How do we ensure that there's enough students that are in, pre-K through 12 that are learning the necessary skills to be able to go into college, even graduate school, work for a tech company like Intel, and bring those skills to help companies innovate and provide the next technology that'll help, as we've seen during the last 18 months or so with the pandemic, provide the ability for people to work remotely, to be able to connect through video, those sort of things that are necessary and helpful for the economy and for us to continue to grow. But that's something that when we think about the challenges the tech industry and others are facing, it's going to be the workforce. How do we ensure we have that? And that's where policymakers, government comes in handy to help kind of build out that workforce along with the private sector.
Great, thank you. It's definitely an important investment that we need to make. Let's see, our next question, I'm going to go back to you, Angel. You mentioned how important the census is and how it determines our policy and how much lawmakers have an effect in this. But how as young professionals can we promote this?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about when promoting the census, so for example, the 2020 decennial, or the one-time count that happens every 10 years, that the census just concluded that last year, and we're still going through the process of putting out those numbers. But I can give you an example of, just the other day, my wife gets a text and it says, oh, this is the Census Bureau. We have some questions for you about, how has COVID affected you? And she looks at me and she's like, is this real? And so I'm like, give me a second, let me make a call. And so I make the call. I, in fact, determined that it's real, which is funny that it got to her because it had never happened before. And I asked her, yeah, please do, answer that survey that came to her over text. Because that information is going to be valuable for policymakers to determine. We're not trying to find out who has COVID. We're trying to find out, has COVID affected you within your socioeconomic status? So it's about pairing some of the information that is collected from other agencies to provide a more robust picture of what's going on in the country today. And so what I would say is, like, if you've never been a participant, to a census survey, but someone who has, and I would encourage those people who are asked to participate in either a census survey or in the census as a whole, to do their civic duty. This information that is collected is very, very important for policymakers to make the right decisions, the decisions that are informed by data and science. So that's how I would answer that question.
Great, thank you. Our next question is for Emily. As a Hispanic woman working for the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, what are your thoughts on working on policy issues that hit close to home, like border security and immigration? Do you have any advice on how you would handle this?
Yeah, great question. And it's certainly, an issue that does hit home for me since, my father went from working in the fields, planting tomatoes, to putting on lids on washing machines, to, being able to actually graduate from college and all of these things. And so been very blessed to work our way up in the United States. But when it comes to policy issues like this, like I've been very lucky that I've been able to agree 99% of the time with my bosses. But you need to, that being said, you need to remember that they hired you for your advice and your counsel, but at the end of the day, they alone answer to their constituents. So you want to harness the passion that you have about a policy issue and channel it into doing the best work and providing them everything they need to make the decision that they alone have to make in representing their constituency, whether it's on legislation or anything else. And so it's, you recognize that you're not necessarily going to agree all the time. And there's certainly been times when I've had to agree to compromise with my bosses on different things. But I think that when you have an issue that you're really passionate about, you can use it to energize yourself to do the hard work and really give a thorough accounting to your principal.
Great, thank you. My next question is for Sara. What are some common misconceptions people can have about the Hill and DC politics in general? How can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively?
Trying to think. It's not like, I think everyone says this, it's not like House of like Veep, so similar. No, I think if you find work that you're really passionate about doing, you can really dedicate yourself to doing the work and everything else that comes with it, which is it can be nice, where you work or the receptions you're going to or things like that. That's all just add on to the real reason that you're here. So I think it's rewarding to work with folks, like you guys that come from different backgrounds and that have had to work really, really hard to be where we're at. And so the work that you're able to produce when you're so passionate about something is oftentimes an honor to be a part of. I think folks can get a little jaded, and that's certainly easy to do as well. But I think every day just realizing how grateful a lot of people are to be here and how important the work is. It's really rewarding long term. And in regards to communicating more effectively, can you specify? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It is definitely a tough question in our realm of politics. It's hard to answer. I do want to open it up to everyone else too, since this is Once Upon a Hill time. We've all been here. So Moderator, if you can go ahead and answer as well, and then we'll go Angel and then Emily. You're on mute, Moderator.
Yeah, I had a sorry about that. I think kind of one of the things to think about it's being in DC versus being outside of DC and how there's different viewpoints and looking at what goes on the Hill, how the life is. If you're outside of DC, this is, the Capitol and the administration is kind of a foreign thing. depending on your kind of prism and how you get the news. In DC, you're here, you're active, you're in it. It's a lot different. And so a lot of times when people are thinking about DC, they think about it's always a combat. It's polarization. It's always gotcha moments. And I think when you're here, it's not always like that. There is bipartisanship, and I'm optimistic that it will continue and it will succeed. And so that's one of those misconceptions is, it's not a bad place. The people are here to get something done, to work on bettering the country in their view and working for these elected officials and with the country in mind. And so with that, it's more of how can we let others know outside of DC that it is a good place. It's tough, it's not easy. And people bring their different perspectives, their different backgrounds, their histories that might help, kind of frame their reference on how the government's working and operating. But when you're here and working on the Hill or working in administration, you have a focus, you have a goal, and you just kind of work on it and make friends along the way and look to succeed. So I guess in my view, I look at DC as very positive. It does have its bad moments, but I think we're here to get something done.
Great, thank you. Angel?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about DC politics and the Hill is the animosity that is felt between the members of the two party and their staff. I think, don't get me wrong, there are general grievances for sure, but I think, if your boss is out there, making a big splash or saying things that you feel like aggravate you or aggravate someone from the other party, most people need to understand that they have to do that because their constituents feel that way, right? But just because there might be some bolstering and some maybe incendiary language out on the public sphere, it doesn't mean that that person has or bears any ill will or animosity towards members of the other party. In most cases, I've found, most of my interactions in my 10 years in Congress to be quite pleasant, with members of the other party. In fact, when we were working on to get the Latino Museum bill passed, not everybody on the Hill wants a museum. Let's put it that way. And there's many reasons why. But finding somebody who did of the opposing party and working with that person, and building a friendship and a relationship with that person, we were able to kind of put whatever our political differences were aside to actually get the bill passed and hopefully one day make the museum a reality. So that idea that just because one person is part of a particular political party and the other is from the other, that we automatically hate each other, and that I think that's just a big myth of the reality, of what people might think of that happens on the Hill in DC. Because if that were the case, then just nothing would get done.
Definitely. All right, and we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next question. So Emily or Sarah, feel free to jump in on here. But what is the best career advice that you've ever received?
So I'll jump in here. I'd say the best advice I've ever received is the actual motto of Senator Portman, which is to be ever kind and true. And he says it all the time. He ends emails or texts to us just by saying like, be cat. It's sort of become the whole motto of our office. And it encourages, a positive outlook, a positive atmosphere in the office. And it also is so important in building the network, because you do build that yourself a reputation of being someone that can be trusted and that will work hard and, if you make a mistake, you'll say so, and correct it and help other folks succeed.
Great. Thank you. And just want to encourage folks too that we will be opening up our live Q&A in just a second here. So encourage you to ask any questions, and we're happy to answer them in just a few moments. With that being said, again, want to take the time to say thank you to all of our great panelists today. Brianna, are you ready for a photo? Want to get everyone camera ready. Ready. Okay. Everyone ready? Got it. Thank you. All right. So now that we got our picture, again, thank you for the panelists for a very productive conversation. I think we had a lot of good questions in here and got some good insight from everyone today. So we'll now transition into the question and answer portion of the panel. Just as a reminder, just type your questions in the Q&A chat feature box. It's on the bottom of your screen, or you can type them into the chat box as well. All right, let's look here.
So Sarah, I'm gonna jump in here real quick while you're looking for some of the questions. There were some questions that came up in the first panel that we didn't get to that I think would be interesting to get some insights from these members as well. So I'm gonna ask this question of all of you while Sarah looks for some of the other questions. I'm gonna start with Sara Guerrero. The question is, what are some questions, if I'm the one interviewing for a job, what should I be asking? What should I be asking the interviewer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, making sure that you're aware of the culture of the office and what you're stepping into. And I think oftentimes it can be really broad, like, tell me about your office culture. And like, you know, it's easy to just be like, oh, it's great, we all love each other, you know, but maybe being a little more specific, like if we have a tight deadline, you know, what's protocol, you know, and maybe your coworkers will say, oh, well, you know, ask for an extension and like ask to see if you have more time. Whereas maybe another more collaborative office would say like, oh, don't worry, we all help each other. And then you kind of get a better idea of how the office functions. Also just communication style, I think, is helpful. Sometimes, you know, I've worked with folks that don't like to talk a lot. They don't like to banter. It's like, yes, no, and like, that's it. And it's not anything personal. It's just their preferred form of communication. It's just to be very brief. And I think when you step into an environment, understanding people's preferences, it's a lot easier to kind of get something done and to make sure that you're being a helpful part of that team and that you fit into that team in a way that's productive for your principal and of course, like the organization.
Great, thank you. Angel, how about you? You must have gotten some good questions from potential interns or some junior staff on the Hill.
All right, we got a couple of questions, but keep them coming, guys.
Hold on, Sarah. I want to hear what Angel, so we can mix it up.
Oh, am I not on mute? Okay, good.
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of questions that, you know, if you're an interviewee, that you should be asking the interviewer. You know, right now, I'm thinking of some of the best ones. Probably, you know, I'll have to agree with Sarah in terms of the office culture, right? In terms of digging in, you know, and trying to figure out if you're the right fit for that office, because as you're trying to navigate your way through I need a job and I want a job, you know, on the Hill, you know, not every office is the right fit for you, and if you land that job, you might end up being miserable. So I will echo Sarah's question that, you know, digging in a little bit to like, how is the office culture into your potential next job is going to be very telling of whether you want that job or not.
Cool. Emily, then Norberto, and then I'm going to toss it back to Sarah, our moderator, to get the other questions out.
Sure. So the thing that I always liked to ask whenever I was going through interview was to get them to tell me about a stressful situation in the office and sort of explain the whole storyline to me and like the process that they went through, because I think really understanding how the office operates in a crisis gives you a great insight into the culture, the processes, how they communicate, a lot of things that, you know, folks have already gone over as being important things to know about when you're walking into a new office.
Thanks. Norberto?
Yeah, and I think for me, the question comes down to, you know, going off of, you know, what others had said, it's you want to go into a situation that makes sense, that you feel comfortable with, right? And so one of the things is going to be, what's that next step afterwards? After you start, where do they see you? Where are your opportunities to move up, to do something different, to expand your portfolio? I think that's always the key, because you're not going to the spot just to be in that spot. You're looking at what's the next step in your professional development. And so asking them the sort of questions of where will, you know, is this a spot that they're expecting you to be there forever? Or do you have opportunities 6 months later to do something different, to move up, to just get more responsibility? Because that's your goal, is to ensure that you're working in something that you enjoy, but it's also going to lead you to that next step.
Very good. Thank you. I know this was a question that came up before, and I know we have students who just graduated from college, some that are looking for their first job, for an internship, for a fellowship. So sometimes it's good to know what all of you have had in terms of questions asked of you or what you asked before. So thank you for that. And I'm going to pass it on to Sara, so I know that she's gone through to check out some questions.
Yes, thank you, Mary Ann. So one question that we got in the Q&A, I think this is going to be a good question for either Norberto or Angel, but for those who have gone through the Hill and then went off the Hill, what are some of the pros and cons you see to being on the congressional official side and then moving off?
I guess I can start that. You know, most of my career was, you know, post PhD was on the Hill, and there is something really, really amazing about working on the Hill, just because lots of people who are bright-eyed, coming to change the world, and that you can feed off of that energy. And, you know, one of the things that's if you stay long enough, there's a good chance that you will move up. You know, you will move up in terms of like your rank inside, you know, your office or within the general congressional sphere, as a whole. One of the good things about that is that ultimately the higher you go up, the closer you are to the principal, right? And so to the member of Congress. So ultimately that member of Congress is going to rely on you, on your ideas, on your research, on your expertise to make the decisions that they need to essentially improve people's lives, right? When in this case, in the administration, for example, you know, moving up to the principal, advising a member of Congress is one thing. Advising a department director is a completely different thing, because you're now narrowing your focus on, you know, the particular issues that your agency or your particular department or your bureau are focused on, right? When you're on the Hill, you can, you know, sometimes you get the flexibility to work on the issues that you're most passionate on and that you're most knowledgeable on, and you can advance those agendas while at the same time having to work on a slew of different other issues that you might not necessarily care about. When you're outside of that, you're working on one particular issue, or within the context or the environment of that particular agency, and that's what you're trying to move forward. So, it's all up to, a personal choice of what you prefer.
Yeah, and then for thinking about, I can give it from the corporate perspective, and with that, I definitely enjoyed my time on the Hill. Spent about a decade there, loved it. It was a great experience, a lot of friends, worked on a lot of different issues. But what it did is it also set me up for this path. And with that, my portfolio, it's It's broader than it was when I was on the Hill. And so that and provides you different opportunities and different perspectives. Instead of representing the chair, ranking member of a committee, and all the members in the caucus, it's representing a corporation. And with that comes different responsibilities and different pitfalls. And so one of the things I would want to make sure that everybody's aware of is that with the corporation, there are a lot of things that you can work on that you might not even think about. The example I'll give is that recently I brought on an intern for the summer, and for her, she wasn't aware of what a corporation can do, what Intel can do. And so she's come in and now has learned like all the possibilities that once you're in a position that you can take advantage of and how you can help. And so she's working on a federal paid leave policy. She's working on something dealing with mental health and how we can expand mental health coverage. So those are things that she may not have thought about, and you all might not have think about that there's those possibilities. But it is very impactful for a corporation like Intel, with 110,000 employees globally. When you make that change to changing our paid leave policy, how that impacts the daily lives of your employees. So it's very important, and I think that's something that leaving the Hill, I wasn't realizing that there was that opportunity, but now that I'm here, you can see it.
Thank you. Our next question is asking for advice on networking. Kind of a general question, but if anyone has any tips that they like to follow by, please answer. Sarah, I can see you thinking.
I think CHASA is a great resource for this. We have a lot of networking opportunities through the association. So if you're on the Hill or you want to get on the Hill, we're really accessible to folks, and we'll be sure to talk to you and help connect you to people that are perhaps like on your same career path or are a bit more senior, and can kind of help guide you. I have a funny anecdote. When I was in college, I was in DC for a coffee with the chief, and I remember I was talking to them and it was so uncomfortable. It was just so awkward. I didn't really know how to initiate a normal conversation. And after about 10 minutes, they go, "Honey, if you're not good at networking, just don't do it." I was like, oh my God. Anyway, we're friends now, but it was just definitely one of those moments where you're like, oh, but there's hope. So if you ever have an awkward coffee, just know like it could be a lot worse. But I think that when it comes to networking, just, talking to as many people as you can and making sure that you are creating those strong relationships and that you're, talking to folks that can relate to you and want to help you.
Great, thank you. That's a good perspective from being on the Hill. But from a business perspective, Moderator, do you have anything to add?
No, I think the key is relationships and building those friendships, whether they're just acquaintances or good friendships, strong friendships, however you're going to look at it. Building that, learning how to communicate, how to engage with others is very key. And it doesn't end from, being on the Hill to the corporate sector or even in the administration. Being able to call somebody up, email them, contact, and not be a cold call. You can get a lot more done that way. And so that's something that I think everybody should do as much as possible to learn how to engage with others and communicate, and just be, I think as Emily said, it was a BCAT, I think it's kind of whatever it was. So I think that's the key, is just to be kind and truthful, I think, or something is key.
Yeah, be ever kind and true.
Great, and I got a question for Emily. Can you walk us through your day-to-day life as a Senate staffer?
Sure. So, it's changed over the last 5.5 years. Obviously came in as a press secretary, have moved up to communications director. So now I start every day off with a senior staff call to discuss everything that we're doing throughout the day, whether it's in the state or here at the committee or in the personal office. And from there, it's just, in my role as communications director, trying to make sure that I know about everything that's going on in the news cycle, what's going to be driving the day, what my boss is going to have to answer to when he's walking, in the hallways with reporter friends asking him so many friendly questions. And then I am really someone that believes in preparing as much ahead of time as possible. So if I know that we're doing a big legislative package, like maybe on infrastructure, and that we're going to have a bunch of priorities in it that we want to take a victory lap on, I'm going to start writing those press releases days or even sometimes a week ahead of time, so that there's not a crunch on the day of. On the day of, I like to be able to just put finishing touches on press releases and then getting them out so that I can follow up directly with different reporters and making sure that they, number one, caught the press release, since they get so many into their inbox. And it's just, that's another way to continue to develop that relationship that I have with reporters. But then it's also important to start, working on these things early, because I always work hand in glove with our legislative team. And so I want to make sure that they approve of everything that would be going out publicly. So it's, throughout the day, I'm trying to continue to cultivate my relationships with all of our policy staffers so that they feel comfortable coming to me, not just when they're about to introduce a bill, but when they're thinking about asking the boss if he wants to do a bill, so that I can be a part of the whole process the whole way through. So it's, it's a lot of not just the, daily deliverables that go out in my role, but also, continuing to cultivate not just the, relationships with reporters, but the relationships within my own office.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. And I think we have time for one more question. So our last one is, how do you stay motivated working in DC in this polarized political climate?
I can go ahead.
Thank you.
I think, this might not be the best PC thing to say, but being able to shut off some of the noise and focusing on what you're passionate about, right? Right now, there's a lot of issues out there that are highly polarizing. I mean, you can name any, from gun control to, LGBTQ rights. I mean, you name it down the line, right? You can't care about all of them, right? I mean, I'm sure you care about all of them, but you can't take everything personal. So being able to shut off some of that, just put it aside, be like, okay, this is not, this is not my fight. I have no dog in this fight, but this one is. And this particular issue, which I'm very passionate about, I'm going to consume things. And whether it's a friendly conversation or an adversarial conversation, because I am passionate about this particular issue, I am going to laser focus, and that will keep me motivated to keep moving on and keep moving whatever my agenda is forward. But again, you can't fight every fight, and being able to silo off some of the other ones, I think helps me a lot in terms of keeping my motivation going.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? I think that's some great advice.
Nope. Well, I'll jump in and just sort of reiterate with what Angel said before about how, bipartisan friendships are so important, because, we help each other succeed, whether I've had my friends who are Democrats refer me for jobs, or, we actually end up working together on getting legislation over the finish line. honestly, in my day-to-day here, working for the senator, I work more with Democrats than I do with the Republicans. Just sort of the, mostly due to bipartisan working approach that my boss sort of has. But it's also, I think that those bipartisan friendships and keeping in mind that we're all here sort of in awe of the building that we work around really helps keep that in perspective.
And I kind of want to jump on that one. I think bipartisan friendships matter a lot. And I'll say from experience, I'm at my company because one of my friends, Republican friends, suggested that Intel hire me. And they did. So I wouldn't be in this role without somebody on the other side of the aisle.
That's awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. Sara, do you have anything to add? All right. Well, thank you again to our audience for giving us some really great questions. And thank you again to our panelists. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I'll pass it on to Mary Ann.
All right. Well, thanks again for all of you for joining us. I know it's getting close to that Friday weekend, happy hour, all that critical timing here. But thank you so much for your advice, for your support, and especially, individually for each of you. You have contributed a lot individually to CHLI interns, to alumni, and we greatly appreciate that. We appreciate you answering the call when we asked if you could be part of this program. Thank you as well to our moderator, Sara Garcia, greatly appreciate it, and your work as well with the Alumni Association. This concludes the part of our leadership conference part, and we're going to pivot now to the presentation of the Wendy Martinez Award. For the panelists here, you're welcome to stay and listen to the presentation. But I'm going to go ahead now and start the presentation and the award presentation. For many of you who are listening to us and watching, I'm sure that you're familiar with the Leadership Conference and are wondering when we started doing this award. Well, we just started doing this award a couple of years ago, and we thought it would be most important to incorporate it into the Leadership Conference. So let me go ahead and turn it to that page to make sure I've got everything on here correct. CHLI is at the core of CHLI is our leadership development organization and programs. Our internships and fellowship programs are not only critical to the success of the college students who have benefited from the programs, but also many of us, the rest of us. We benefit from their vision and their contributions. The CHLI Board of Directors and the CHLI Alumni Association created this award to recognize the accomplishments of former CHLI interns or fellows who have contributed to CHLI's vision of advancing the Hispanic community's diversity of thought. The award was named in honor of Wendy Martinez, a CHLI alumni whose life was cut short at a young age in 2018. She was one of the founding members who established the CHLI Alumni Association. She became part of the CHLI Familia in 2005 when she interned in the office of CHLI Board Member Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. She earned a bachelor's degree from Florida Atlantic University in 2006, and then a master's in Latin American Studies from Georgetown University. She left a positive impact wherever she went and with whomever she met. She worked at the Nicaraguan Embassy while attending Georgetown, then was an international affairs intern for the USAID's Human Rights Office in Colombia. Her work with local organizations to help youth living in areas of risk find safer communities to live in greatly impacted her. Wendy's passions followed her when she started work at the Inter-American Development Bank. Her unique experiences as an intern drove her to promote sustainability, social impact, and economic development. Wanting to step out of her comfort zone, Wendy went to work at a tech startup, Fiscal Note. She eventually moved her way up to chief of staff because of her humble nature and her hard work. We must not forget the work and the impact that many leaders, young leaders, are making every day. Many in their own right are carving out their path and pushing forward for the benefit of Hispanic communities here and around the world. Young leaders deserve to be recognized. They are not only the future leaders of our country, in many cases, as history has shown over and over again, they are the leaders of change around the world, the ones who take risks and inspire current leaders and future generations that will follow them. Before we present the award, please welcome the Wendy Martinez family. Juan Carlos, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Carlos Martinez Jr. I am the brother of Wendy Martinez. This is my mother, Cora Martinez. On behalf of our family, we are honored and proud to be here. During the time Wendy was an intern at CHLI, she was driven to inspire change and to pave the way for other young women, especially women of Hispanic descent whose family came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. Wendy said, "Do not let the circumstances you were born in dictate your life's outcome." She truly lived by those words, and she worked tirelessly to become a leader and a mentor in both the workplace and in the community. One of her biggest goals was to inspire other Latina women and women in general to hold leadership positions, to follow their dreams, and to push boundaries. She embodied optimism and hard work. And if you had the chance to collaborate with her, she would push you to do the best you can do and to never give up. Wendy was an extremely proud member of the CHLI community. This organization meant so much to her and was a critical stepping stone for her in many ways. CHLI introduced Wendy to DC, the city she grew to call home. It enriched her life by introducing her to great people, and it set her up for success in her career and relationships. Our family continues to be blessed by CHLI, and we know that the recipients of this award today and in the future share Wendy's determination, compassion, and drive to make the world a better place. Knowing that, we couldn't be prouder that Wendy's name will continue to live on with our 2021 recipient and in the work that they do to shape and strengthen the community around them. In my heart, I know that Wendy is looking down on us right now with her huge smile, happy that we are honoring her by giving this award to somebody committed to driving change for the better. We love her very much. And again, we thank everyone who works so hard to keep her name alive through this award. To our 2021 recipient, we wish you the best of luck in all of your endeavors. We are so, so very proud of you. And in the words of Wendy Karina Martinez, remember, love wins. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody for this opportunity. I remember being in Washington, D.C. during the CHLI Gala back in 2019. It was a beautiful moment. Thank you to everybody who did CHLI for giving us the opportunity and giving Wendy the opportunity to be part of somebody's dream, and especially a leader, a Latino, somebody that really has the drive to change the world for the best. And thank you, Mary Ann, especially to you for this kind of opportunity you are giving us, and for letting Wendy impact other lives with her dreams and her drives, her generous heart, and her compassion for others. Thank you.
Thank the two of you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with us. You will always be with us. You will always continue to be the ambassadors and the representatives of Wendy's life, and you are also the ones that were with her, and you not only taught her, but we've also learned from the two of you and from the way that you've handled Wendy's legacy, and how you have continued also to support others. Please stay here, because when we get through the rest of this program, we want to make sure that we have all of you in a group photo. Next, I'm going to introduce one of our current board members, Omar Franco. He was a chief of staff for Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart at the time when Wendy interned in that office. And now Omar is a director at Becker and Polikoff in the Washington, D.C. office. He joins us today to add his remarks and support for this award and recognize Wendy.
Thank you, Mary Ann. So as a board member, we not only provide oversight and contribute to the organization, we also support and advise our interns. I remember Wendy working in our office, and as the family stated, she was humble, curious, and hardworking. What I don't know if people remember, she was actually my intern. So she was actually housed in my office. So she got to see the inner machinations of what a chief of staff does day in and day out. So she was with me almost 3 to 4 months. And I have to tell you, the family, she was probably one of the best interns I've ever had. And, I kept in touch with her through all the years. She was just a phenomenal person and someone that we will deeply miss. So, but I am also here to introduce someone that we are, another alumni that we are extremely proud of, and who will be officially presenting today's award on behalf, in memory of Wendy. Janelle Perez is the daughter of Cuban exiles. After graduating from Florida International University, she came to Washington, D.C. to put her political science major to work. In 2009, and here I'm going to deviate from the script a little bit, her dad and her uncle were actually clients of mine at the time, and they had called me and to tell me that Janelle had put in to be an intern for Ileana's office, and would I put in a good word? I immediately called the chief and I said, listen, not only will Janelle be a great intern, you really need to give her some real work to do, because she is really highly qualified. So, as they say, the rest is history. She interned with Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen in 2010. She followed that up by being part of the CHLI Global Leaders Fellowship cohort, where she interned for the Committee on Foreign Affairs in the House. Then, while seeking a master's in government at Johns Hopkins, she participated in various organizations, including as Government Affairs Associate for Friends of the Global Fight Against AIDS. At 28, she had to put her career on pause to fight a personal battle with cancer. She moved back to Miami and prioritized her health and started her family. Today, she is one of the owners of Doctors Healthcare Plans, a Hispanic-owned Medicare managed care company in Miami-Dade County, providing service to Florida's low-income elderly. She lives in Miami with her wife and daughter. On behalf of the CHLI board, I personally want to thank Janelle for her $10,000 contribution to this conference. It is the first major contribution from an alumni. So thank you, Janelle, for your leadership, and the floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Omar. That was very nice. Thank you very much. And I am honored to be an alumni of CHLI. I'm glad to provide funding for this award and conference. Like Wendy, I'm passionate about helping others and achieving their goals. I took the opportunity to sponsor this award, not only because I identify with Wendy and her passion for human rights, but also because I want to help impact young leaders from across our country to be a part of our democratic process. I'm proud to present this award in honor of an exemplary CHLI alumnus. Our honoree, Tony Flores, is from San Diego, California. He attended the University of California in Davis, where he studied social policy and ethnic studies. Son of Mexican immigrants, he is invested in social justice, equity, and community development. He was a CHLI Global Leader intern in 2019. Shortly after completing the internship, he worked for Congressman Lou Correa in Washington, D.C., then transferred to the district office in Santa Ana, California. Tony stepped up to serve his community during the pandemic by organizing food drives and ensuring that people in the hardest areas of the district had the resources that they needed. He has been able to accomplish this by collaborating with the power of the One Foundation, Latino Health Access, and the Mayor's Office, as well as California State Senator Tom Umberg's office. Tony is passionate about helping others. He is engaged with the CHLI Alumni Association, and he's applied his lessons and experiences of overcoming obstacles to help others. He's planning to go to graduate school before running for public office. Congratulations, Tony, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you.
All right, and with that, I think there's Tony. All right, congratulations, Tony. The floor is yours, dear.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Marianne. Well, first of all, I'm not sure if you guys are able to see me. Yeah?
Yep.
Oh, okay, awesome. Just making sure. Well, hello, everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank, every single one of you who has taken, the time and the energy to ensure that the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute continues to grow and continues to provide resources to our next generation. So with this being said as well, also, I want to thank the Wendy Martinez family, Juan Carlos Martinez, and your family for continuing to share these stories of your sister, Wendy Martinez. As you all know, we just heard Juan Martinez talk a little bit about the great things that Wendy Martinez was able to accomplish in the little time that we had her here in this world. She impacted people from all walks of life. And for me, it's such a humbling experience being awarded with the Wendy Martinez CHLI Community Engagement Award for 2021. So I started off working for Congressman Lou Correa over at Capitol Hill in early 2019. In 2020, I made the decision to return to my community here in Orange County and work at our district office. For me, it's always been a calling to always learn, meet people along the way that could show me the ropes. And so then I could return to my community and make an impact and influence the next generation. When I returned in 2020 here to Orange County, I don't think many people would have expected, what was to come. We were all faced with, with the COVID-19 pandemic. We all saw or might have been affected some way or another with COVID-19. People, hardworking people, lost their jobs. A lot of people didn't know if they were going to be able to pay their bills the next day or feed their family. So it was very, very tough for a lot of community members. And so for me, being able to be here in my community during that time was something very special, and I learned so much. I was able to partner up with community-based organizations to organize food distributions, vaccination clinics as well, and so much more. And so for me, it's such a humbling experience to be awarded with the Wendy Martinez Award. And I hope that we continue to honor Wendy Martinez's legacy, by paying it forward, by giving back to our next generation, so we could have more Wendy Martinez's in this world. So I look forward in working, with our Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute, with all of our amazing corporate, sponsors, Mary Ann, the CHLI Alumni Board as well, and our future leaders to ensure that we're always doing our part to advance the Hispanic community, the diversity of thought. So thank you so much for this award. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Tony. And I'm wondering, Tony, were you able to get the award? Did you get it already?
No.
Not yet? It's still in route? Okay. We have the tracking that we know that it's on its way. I'm not going to call out the service because they're all part of our board. So we know that it's on the way. Please do us a favor when you do get the award. Please have a friend, someone take that picture of you holding that award so that we can share that with everyone as well.
Sure.
I want to, at this point, ask Juan Carlos and Cora, if you can please come up back here to the screen here. And that way we can take a screenshot photo. So this is kind of what we've done. And I don't know if the photo can include the other pictures or not, but I think it's just gonna include all of us here. So I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna count to 3. And if you can please just look in the camera. Tony, you're ready for your glamour shot here?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so when I count to 3, we just smile and look in the camera. Brianna, our video and photography fellow, will snap a couple of pictures. And then we will include that to share with others via social media. We'll also capture this. The next time when we get the photo of you, Tony will also share that as well with you in the award. So ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, I think we got that. I hope we did. Brianna says that she got it. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here. This is a really important aspect of our conference. Moving forward, the Future Leaders Conference will always end now with the presentation of this Wendy Martinez award. We wanted to specifically include it here because we know that, Cora, you mentioned in 2019 when we did the award at the gala, it was a very special moment for everyone on the board and the Alumni Association do it with you there and in front of a different group for everyone to see and to learn about Wendy if they had not had the opportunity to feel her love. And so we wanted to make sure that we did that there. Moving forward, however, we want all of the young leaders, future leaders and current young leaders who are part of this leadership conference to see and to learn about Wendy. And we also want to take the time, as I mentioned in the beginning, we want to take the time to recognize and honor our current young leaders because many times we kind of wait until they're older and they've done all these kinds of different things and they've given back, but there are many times when our young leaders are not always recognized and honored. And we also want to make sure that young leaders and current leaders see that they don't have to wait until they're in their 50s or 60s to be honored and recognized for their accomplishments. They could be recognized for their accomplishments now. And that's really important for us as we're grooming and molding and supporting young leaders. We want you to know that we support you with what you're doing now, which is why we're so excited to see you, Tony, why we're so excited to see Janelle and what she's doing with her business. And so I know that I speak for Omar as well here as a board member, that we're here for you. We're here to support you, empower you. And this is one of the ways that we can't reach all of you every day, all the time, but we're hopeful that you are inspired by the presentations today, inspired by Wendy's legacy, and inspired by Tony. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up the program and the award ceremony, wishing all of you a blessed weekend and God bless. Thank you for joining us today.